Hey guys, tonight we are going to try something a little different. We're going to see if you can survive one of the most stressful job interviews in history for a position you probably never applied to the medieval court jester. The interview panel consists of one person, a moody, old, powerful king. The success metric is simple: make him laugh. The penalty for failure, well, let us just say your resume won't be the only thing getting shredded. You'd probably be lucky to just get fired. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps more than you know. And as always, I'd love to see where you're tuning in from. So drop your city and the time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's test journey together. The first thing you notice is the grandeur of the great hall, but the silence. It is a heavy, oppressive silence that swallows the sound of your own ragged breaths. You're standing on cold stone flags, worn smooth by centuries of footsteps more important than yours. A goddess meaty hand rests on your shoulder, not unkindly, but with a firmness that reminds you that running is not an option. Your clothes, a simple peasant-ass tunic and leggings, feel impossibly coarse and dirty in this place. The air is thick with the smell of wood smoke from the enormous hearth, the lingering scent of roasted boar, and the faint, almost sweet perfume of beeswax candles. Both eyes are on you, rows of nobles, draped in velvets and furs of jewel-toned colors, sit at long oaken tables. They stare with a mixture of boredom and cruel curiosity. To them, you are a momentary diversion, a brief respite from the endless political maneuvering, unstifling etiquette of the court. You are tonight their entertainment, one way or another. And then you see him, the king. He is lounging on a massive, carved wooden throne at the far end of the hall, a hulking silhouette against the flickering torchlight behind him. He is wearing a crown, but he doesn't need one. Power radiates from him like heat from a forge. He holds a jewel-encrusted goblet in one hand, swirling the deep red wine within. His eyes fixed on you. They are dark, intelligent, and utterly unamused. You've heard of this king. You know he once had a stable boy flogged for tracking mud into the cellar. You also know that his last jester, a man named Will Summers, or at least, that is who some chronicles might call him, simply vanished a month ago. No one asks where he went. Harold, a man with a pinched face and a ridiculously ornate tabard, steps forward. His Royal Majesty, the King, he announces, his voice ringing with practiced importance, has been told that you, a common vagrant, possess a wit to rival the devil himself. He is unconvinced. Amuse him. The command hangs in the air. Amuse him. It is so simple, yet so impossible. Your mind is a frantic, empty space. What do you say? You've heard the stories. The ones that say a true fool has a unique license, the freedom of the fool to speak truth to power. But looking at the cold, impassive face of the man on the throne, you question how true those stories really are. Historians to this day still debate the extent of this supposed immunity. Was it a recognized social function, or just a dangerous gamble entirely dependent on the monarch's mood? You decide this is probably not the best time to test that particular academic theory. Your eyes dart around, looking for anything, any scrap of inspiration. You spot the empty stool near the throne, smaller than all the others. On it rests the jester Esmeralda, or bauble, a carved stick with a miniature head on top, a sort of mock scepter. It was the last fooless. The little carved face, with its own bells and tiny fool-esque cap, seems to mock you. You need a joke that is clever but not insulting, smart but not condescending. You take a deep breath, the silence pressing in. You bow low, your heart hammering against your ribs. Your Majesty, you begin, your voice a little shaky, but clear enough to carry. They say I have a quick wit, but I find myself in a predicament. The king raises an eyebrow, a flicker of interest. You continue, for if I say a thing that is truly witty, your court will claim I must have stolen it from a clever man. and if I say a thing that is dull, they will say it is my own. You pause, letting the logic settle. So, to prove my wit is my own, must I be a fool? A dangerous ripple of nervous titterass goes through the court. You've just gently poked fun at the courtiers, implying they are unoriginal. You hold your breath, your eyes locked on the king. The silence stretches for what feels like an eternity. He stares into his wine. Then, slowly, a deep chuckle rumbles in his chest. It is not a laugh of pure joy, but of appreciation for the clever trap of your words. The chuckle grows into a short, barking laugh. Instantly, the entire hall erupts in relieved, sycophantic laughter. The king waves a dismissive hand at the guard. Leave him, he commands, his voice raspy. He can stay. For now. The guard releases your shoulder. You've been given a stay of execution. You are not a free man, nor are you a guest. You are now a thing, a piece of property owned by the court. Your audition is over, but your trial has just begun. The relief washing over you is as brief and as cold as a splash of winter rain. Before the echo of the king's laughter has fully died, the guard's hand is back on your arm, this time tugging you away from the great hall, away from the throne and the watchful eyes of the court. You are not led towards a celebratory feast or even a warm corner by the fire. You are pulled through a series of increasingly narrow, smoky corridors, down a winding stone staircase where the air grows damp and smells of mildew and old rushes. Your destination is a small, windowless room, little more than a stone closet, lit by a single, sputtering tallow candle that casts long, dancing shadows on the walls. In the center of the room stands a severe-looking man, the master of the royal wardrobe. He doesn't greet you, or even acknowledge your recent triumph. His face is a mask of professional disinterest. He simply points a bony finger at a wooden chest. Strip, he says, his voice flat. His Majesty as fool does not wear rags. You hesitate for a moment, clutching the rough fabric of your tunic. It may be stained and worn, but it is yours. It is the last piece of the person you were just an hour ago. The guard beside you gives a pointed cough, and you comply, peeling off the layers that feel like your own skin. You stand there in the chilly air, vulnerable and anonymous on the cold stone. The wardrobe master lifts the lid of the chest. Inside, nestled in the dark wood, is a cacophony of color. He pulls out your new uniform, your new identity, and lays it out on the chest. It is a sight both ridiculous and terrifying. This is the motley. The primary garment is a long tunic and hose, but they are party-colored, split right down the middle. One side is a garish, almost violent shade of yellow, the other a deep, charring green. The symbolism is immediately clear. You are a person of two halves, of contradiction, belonging nowhere. Sewn along the jagged hem of the tunic and onto the points of a floppy, three-pointed collar are dozens of small brass bells. They remain silent while the garment is still, but you know that with the slightest movement, they will create a constant, jingling announcement of your presence. You will never walk in silence again. You will be a walking sound effect, a human wind chime, unable to ever be discreet or private. Then he holds up the hat, the crowning glory of your new role. It is a floppy affair, made of the same clashing yellow and green fabric, with more bells at the end of its drooping points. But rising from the top is its most defining feature, a floppy red crest, shaped like a rooster-esque comb, a coxcomb. It is a symbol of foolish pride, of a preening, strutting bird, a mockery of the crowns and coronets worn by everyone else in the castle. It is your crown of fools. This is a key part of your new life that historians still argue about. Was the motley purely a uniform for quick identification, like a servantess livery, ensuring no one mistook your licensed insults for genuine rebellion? Or was it a deliberate mark of shame, a visual punishment that screamed outcast to all who saw it? Some even theorize it was a kind of paradoxical shield, a vibrant warning sign that the person wearing it operated under a different set of rules. You don't have the luxury of academic debate. As you look at the absurd costume, you just feel a profound sense of humiliation. Put it on, the wardrobe master commands, his patience clearly wearing thin. Slowly, you dress. The wool is scratchy against your skin, not the soft, worn linen you are used to. It smells of dye and moth-eaten storage. You pull the tunic over your head, and the little bells give their first conspiratorial tinkle, a sound that sends a shiver down your spine. You pull on the party-colored hose, one leg yellow, one leg green, feeling like a child as toy. Finally, you place the ridiculous coxcomb hat on your head. The wardrobe master holds up a small, polished metal disc, not quite a mirror, but reflective enough. You lean and unsee a stranger staring back. It has your face. Yes, but it has been stolen, reframed by this costume. The bright colors seem to drain the life from your skin. The silly hat casts your features in a foolish light. You are no longer a man. You are a concept. You are the fool. You twitch your head slightly, and the bells answer with a cheerful, mocking jingle. That is your sound now, the sound of a cage, beautifully decorated and worn for all to see. You have a new name, a new purpose, a new skin, but you have a dreadful feeling you've just lost yourself. Dressed in your new, jingling skin, you are led back up the winding stairs, the small bells on your collar and hat announcing your every hesitant step. The sound is unnerving, a constant reminder of what you've become. You feel the stares of servants you pass in the corridors. Their eyes, once perhaps indifferent, now hold a mix of pity, scorn, and a tiny spark of fear. You are no longer one of them. You are something else entirely. You are brought back to the threshold of the great hall, but you don't re-enter from the main doors. Instead, a guard shoves you through a smaller side entrance, one used by servers and musicians. The feast is now in full swing. The initial tension of your audition has dissolved into boisterous revelry. The air is heavy with the smells of mulled wine, dripping fat, and unwashed bodies. Hounds scuffle for scraps under the tables, and the roar of conversation is a physical force. The king, looking much more relaxed now, catches sight of you. He gestures with a half-eaten chicken leg. Ugh, our new songbird. Come, fool. The night grows long and my lords grow dull. Earn your keep. A space is cleared for you on the rushes-strewn floor in the center of the hall. The circle of faces around you is a blur of torchlight and shadows. This is it. Your first real performance. The audition was a single, desperate gamble. This is the beginning of the daily grind. You have to be funny on command. Again and again, your mind, which had been a blank slate of terror during the audition, is now a chaotic jumble. What do they want? A song, a story, a physical gag. The expectations are a heavy cloak, far more smothering than the motley you wear. You remember tales of jesters who were masters of mimicry, of acrobatics, of music. You, on the other hand, have only your wits. You decide to start with something simple, a classic observational joke you once heard from a traveling storyteller. You take a deep breath, trying to project your voice over the din. My lords, my ladies, you begin, your voice cracking slightly before you find your rhythm. I have been pondering a great mystery. Why is it that a rich man's dog is praised for its loyalty when it stays by his side at a feast, but a poor man is called a beggar for doing the same thing? You look around the room. A few of the courtiers chuckle. It is a safe joke, a gentle jab at the obvious hypocrisy of wealth. It lands, but that's a shaky landing. It doesn't sparkle. It is competent, not brilliant. The king smiles faintly, a lazy, indulgent smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. It is the smile one gives a moderately clever child. It is not enough. You can feel it. You need to do more. Your eyes scan the room again, desperately seeking a target, a subject. You see a notoriously vain baron, Sir Reginald, preening at the end of a nearby table. He is stroking his magnificent, forked beard, which he oils with some foul-smelling concoction. It is a risk, but you know that sometimes a well-aimed jest at a specific, powerful person, as long as it is not the king, can win you points. And I must congratulate you, Sir Reginald, you exclaim, pointing directly at him. The baron looks up, startled, his hand frozen in his beard. I see you have trained 2 squirrels to sit so patiently upon your chin. Do you pay them in acorns, or simply with the promise that they might one day nest in a beard so grand? A wave of genuine, surprised laughter rolls through the hall this time. The other nobles, many of whom secretly despise Sir Reginald Death's vanity, roar with delight. Sir Reginald Death's face flushes a deep, dangerous crimson. He is not amused. He glares at you, a look of pure venom in his eyes. You have made an enemy, a powerful one, but the king laughs. A real, hearty laugh this time. He slams his goblet on the table, wine sloshing over the side. Excellent, fool. Excellent, he roars. You have succeeded. You've made the king laugh twice, but as you bow, the jingle of your bells sounding both triumphant and mocking, you catch Sir Reginald Death's glare again. You've each learned a critical lesson, one that will define your existence here. In the court, laughter is a currency, but every coin you earn seems to buy you a new enemy. This is where a little known, almost bizarre, piece of Jester lore comes into play. Some historical accounts mention the use of a fool as bladder, an inflated pig as bladder on a stick. It was used for slapstick, to hit people harmlessly, but some scholars suggest it had a secondary, symbolic purpose. By striking a noble with the bladder, the jester was ritualistically and safely deflating their ego. It was a visual punchline. Looking at Sir Reginald Death's furious face, you wish you had one right now. Historians debate whether this was a comment to lore or a rare theatrical prop, but tonight, you feel the need for it viscerally. You've survived your first night on the job. You've made the king laugh and the court applaud. But as you retreat to the edge of the hall, the shadows feel a little colder. The laughter echoes in your ears, but it is drowned out by the silent threat in a slighted nobleman's eyes. You didn't just tell a joke. You threw a stone into a pond of piranhas, and you ray the one who has to keep swimming. The applause fades, but the memory of Sir Reginald Death's glare burns in your mind. The feast winds down. Drunken nobles are helped to their chambers. Servants scurry to clear the debris, and the great hall, once a theater for your desperate wit, slowly empties and grows quiet. No one tells you where to go. You are simply left standing in the shadows as the last of the torches are extinguished. The hall now lit only by the dying embers in the massive hearth. The silence you first feared has returned, but now it is filled with the ghosts of laughter and the promise of future resentment. You wander, your bells making a lonely, soft jingle in the cavernous space. Every corridor looks the same in the gloom. You are an alien in this new ecosystem, and you need to learn its rules. First, you observe. You see a young page, half asleep, trip on a loose flagstone and spill a pitcher of water. A steward appears out of the darkness, not with a word of comfort, but with a sharp cuff to the boy's ear. The lesson is clear: mistakes are punished swiftly and without sentiment. Efficiency and invisibility are the keys to survival for the lower ranks. But you are not one of the lower ranks. Not exactly. You are not a servant, meant to be invisible. You are a spectacle, meant to be seen and heard. Yet, you are not the noble, entitled to respect. You exist in a strange, undefined space between these two worlds, a social amphibian, and it is a dangerous place to be. You find a quiet alcove and watch, as the court's subtle power dynamics play out in the late-night quiet. You see the captain of the guard share a hushed, conspiratorial word with the king's spymaster. They don't look at each other, just stare into the shadows as they speak, a clear sign of a clandestine meeting. You see a lady in waiting discreetly pass a sealed note to a knight who is not her husband. You see the king's treasurer studiously avoiding eye contact with the queen's brother. This is the viper's nest. Every smile can hide a scheme. Every compliment can be a baited hook. Your job is to make these people laugh. But you realize now that your survival depends on understanding who is laughing and why. A joke that pleases the king might infuriate the queen. A jest that delights a duke might offend a visiting ambassador, creating a diplomatic incident for which you, the fool, will be the convenient scapegoat. You learn the first silent rule. Know the alliances, the king's faction, the queen's circle, the ambitious uncles, The resentful cousins, they're all planets in a complex solar system, and you must understand their orbits or risk a fatal collision. Your jests will have to be like carefully aimed arrows, shot with a full understanding of the political landscape. Then you learn the second rule. Never be caught alone with the wrong person. To be seen in a quiet corner with Sir Reginald D's rival might be seen as taking sides. To accept a gift from a courtier could be interpreted as accepting a bribe. Your loyalties must be singular, to the king, and to the king alone. Everyone else is a potential trap. This is a reality that many historical depictions of jesters miss. They are often shown as freewheeling, independent commentators, but the truth was likely far more constrained. Their truth-telling was almost certainly a carefully curated performance, approved of, or at least tolerated by, the monarch for his own purposes, perhaps to gauge the mood of his court, or to subtly mock a rival he cowed and openly challenge. The extent to which a jester could improvise within this framework is another of those questions historians love to argue. Was the fool a true political satirist, or just a living puppet whose strings were pulled by the king? Standing in the shadows, you suspect the latter is closer to the truth. As you linger, a thought strikes you. You are uniquely positioned because you are a fool. In August, people might become careless around you. They might say things in your presence they wouldn't say in front of a fellow noble or even a servant who might be a spy. Your ridiculous costume, your constant jingling presence, might eventually make you part of the furniture unthreatening. The ignorable furniture that happens to have ears. This is both a source of potential power and of immense danger. The more you know, the more valuable you are, but also the more of a liability you become. You remember a strange, little-known historical tidbit you once heard a scholar debate. The idea of the fool as pardon. Supposedly, some fools were given a symbolic token, a lead coin or a special ring, which they could present once in their lifetime to beg forgiveness for a joke that went too far. It was a get-out-of-jail-free card. Most historians believe this is likely a romantic myth, a folk tale. Looking around the cold, unforgetting stone hall, you are certain it is a myth. There are no magic tokens here. There are no second chances. There is only the intricate, deadly dance of power, and you are the clumsy new partner, trying desperately not to step on the wrong toes. The vipers are all around you, silent and watchful, and you have to learn to dance among them without getting bitten. Eventually, a burly, stoop-shouldered man, the castle kennel master, finds you lingering in the shadows of the great hall. He smells strongly of wet dog and stale beer. He jerks his head, a silent command for you to follow. Oak, a fragile and foolish thing, flickers within you. Perhaps they'll be given a small chamber, a dear room in a forgotten tower, a place to call your own. The kennel master leads you away from the relative grandeur of the main keep, out into a damp, moonless courtyard. The air is sharp and cold. You cross the muddy yard. Your thin jester ass shoes ridiculous, pointed things with curled toes offering no protection from the muck. You are led towards a long, low-lying stone building from which a cacophony of sounds and a powerful stench emanate. It is the kennel's. He shoves open a heavy wooden door, and the noise hits you like a physical blow. The baying, whining, and growling of the king's prized hunting hounds. The smell is overwhelming, a pungent mix of damp fur, animal waste, and raw meat. The floor is covered in a thick layer of straw, much of it oiled. Dozens of dogs, from massive wolfhounds to scrubby terriers, are chained to rings in the wall or roam within wooden pens. They fall silent as you enter, their eyes gleaming in the dim light of the kennel master's lantern. They stare at you, the newcomer, the strangely dressed creature who jingles when he moves. In the far corner of the kennel, there is a small, slightly raised wooden platform, barely large enough for a man to curl up on. On it lies a thin, lumpy mattress stuffed with what feels like straw and hope, and a single, threadbare woolen blanket. This, you realize with a sinking heart, is your new home. The kennel master grunts, pointing a grubby finger at the pathetic excuse for a bed. Here, he says. It is the only word he speaks. He turns and leaves. bolting the heavy door behind him, leaving you in near total darkness. Alone with the dogs, you stand there for a long moment, the foolish bells on your head giving a soft, melancholic tinkle. You are to sleep with the animals. It is a powerful, deliberate statement of your social standing. You are not considered fully human. You are a pet, a creature kept for the king as amusement, and so you are housed with his other creatures. You are ranked somewhere between a prized hound and a well-trained hawk. Slowly, you make your way to the platform. A few of the dogs let out low growls as you pass. You sit down on the lumpy mattress, the rough blanket scratching your hands. The cold from the stone floor seeps into your bones. This is a far cry from the romantic image of the fool as the king's cherished confidant, whispering wisdom into his ear. This is the grubby, humiliating reality. This detail of jesters being housed in appalling conditions is something historians have pieced together from household accounts and castle layouts. While a particularly favored fool of a powerful monarch might eventually earn better quarters, a newcomer, an unknown quantity like you, would be granted the barest of essentials. The debate continues about whether this was purely practical, tucking you away in any available space, or if it was a calculated part of the breaking-in process, a way to constantly remind you of your lowly, dependent status. As your eyes adjust to the gloom, you see the shapes of the hounds more clearly. One of the larger dogs, a gray-muzzled wolfhound with sad, intelligent eyes, pads over to you. It sniffs at your strange, party-colored leg, its wet nose cold against your skin. It seems to sense your fear and misery. After a moment, it lets out a soft sigh and lies down on the straw-covered floor near your platform, its head on its paws, watching you. Its presence is surprisingly comforting, a silent acknowledgement of your existence, and here you uncover a strange, cold piece of trivia about medieval life in an era of rudimentary medicine. It was sometimes believed that the body heat of animals, particularly dogs, could help ward off sickness and absorb bad humors from a person. It was a kind of primitive, living hot water bottle. Some scholars have morbidly joked that quartering a fool with the dogs might have been seen as a way to keep both the jester and the hounds healthy. You doubt anyone here is concerned for your health, but the warmth radiating from the nearby animal is a small, welcome comfort. You lie down, pulling the thin blanket over your ridiculous costume. You don't bother to take it off. It is a part of you now. The bells give a final, soft jingle as you settle. The sounds of the sleeping castle are distant, muted. Here in the kennel, the world is reduced to the sound of canine breathing, the occasional sleepy whine, and the rustle of straw. You are an entertainer for kings, a player in the grand game of court politics. But tonight, your bed is among the beasts. You close your eyes, the smell of dog in your nostrils, and wonder if you will ever feel clean again. You are not in a bedroom. You are in storage. You awake to the sound of barking in the wet, slobber-white sensation of a dog-ass tongue on your face. It is morning. Gray light filters through the cracks in the kennel door, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stale air. Your body aches from the cold stone and the lumpy mattress. The thin blanket did little to ward off the chill, and the scratchy wool of your motley has irritated your skin. You sit up, your bells jingling you into consciousness, and find yourself the subject of intense canine curiosity. A young page unbolts the door and slides a wooden bowl and a hunk of dark, heavy bread onto the floor. He doesn't look at you. The bowl contains a thin, watery gruel, the same as what is being slopped into the dog's troughs. You have your breakfast, a meal shared with your new roommates. You eat it quickly, tearing at the dense bread with your teeth. Hunger overrides pride. Later, you are summoned back to the main keep. The court is a different creature by day. The torch-lit drama of the feast is replaced by the cold, business-like light of morning. Nobles and officials stride through the corridors with purpose, their faces set in masks of serious ambition. The king is in his throne room, not for a feast, but for the day's business, hearing petitions, settling disputes, passing judgments. You are expected to be there, a silent, colorful ornament standing near the throne. Your job, for now, is not to be funny, but simply to be. to be the fool, a living symbol of the king's power. He has the power to command laughter, to dress a man in motley, to make him sleep with dogs. Your presence is a testament to his absolute authority. From your vantage point, you have an unparalleled view of the king. You watch him as he listens to a land dispute between two minor barons. His face is unreadable, his eyes hooded. He asks a single, sharp question that cuts to the heart of the matter, exposing a lie in one of the baroness' testimonies. He delivers his judgment swiftly, decisively, and without emotion. Then he moves on. You realize that your most crucial skill will not be juggling or telling jokes, but reading this man, his moods. You suspect are like the weather, changeable, unpredictable, and with the potential to be stormy and destructive. Your life depends on being able to forecast them. You start to notice the small things. The way his fingers tap on the arm of the throne when he is impatient. The slight tightening of his jaw when he is displeased. The almost imperceptible narrowing of his eyes when his interest is piqued. These are the shadows, the subtle tales that precede the storm. A joke that might delight him when he is in a generous mood could earn you a flogging if delivered when he is stressed or angry. This is your new art form, meteorology of the soul. A petitioner, a merchant from a nearby town, is brought before him. The merchant is complaining about a new tax levied by the local sheriff. The king listens, his face a stony mask. You see his thumb begin to rub rhythmically against the carved head of a dragon on his throne's arm. You catalog this gesture. Boredom, bordering on annoyance. Now is not the time for a witty observation about taxes. You remain silent, a statue in green and yellow. The king dismisses the merchant with a non-committal grunt, leaving the man as fate hanging in the air. The next case is presented. As the day wears on, you become a silent collector of these emotional signals. You learn that a slight, left-leaning tilt of his head means he is genuinely considering an argument. A quick glance towards his wine goblet means he wants the proceedings to end. This ability to read a patron was paramount for a jester's survival, and it is a skill that is impossible to glean from official historical records. This is the unwritten history, the history of subtle gestures and calculated silences. Historians can debate the political function of the fool, but they can only speculate on the minute-to-minute psychological tightrope these individuals had to walk. Was there a formal training, a whisper of advice from an older court hand, or was it purely survival of the most observant? Standing here, you know it is the latter. There is no manual. There is only watch, learn, or disappear. Late in the afternoon, a messenger arrives, breathless, with news from the northern border. A rival lord has made a raid. The king's mood shifts instantly. The boredom vanishes, replaced by a cold, sharp-edged fury. His body tenses. His hand clenches into a fist. The air in the room becomes thick with unspoken menace. Everyone from the highest lord to the lowliest scribe seems to shrink, to make themselves smaller. You, however, are paid to be visible. You stand your ground, the bells on your hat seeming to jingle with a nervous, tiny energy. In this moment, you are more terrified than you were during your audition. The amused monarch from the feast is gone, replaced by a warlord. And you have no idea what a warlord does with a fool who is no longer amusing. You recall a strange, perhaps apocryphal, story about Tarleton, a famous jester in Queen Elizabeth's court. He was renowned for his improvisational wit, but he was also known to have overstepped his bounds on occasion. One legend claims that after a particularly audacious jest, the queen had him banished from her presence, and he was only allowed back after a period of sincere groveling. It highlights the fact that even the most famous and beloved fools were never truly secure. Their favor was a loan, not a gift, and it could be recalled at any time. The king rises from his throne, his face a thundercloud. He begins to bark orders at his captains. The court is a flurry of activity. You are utterly ignored, a forgotten splash of color in a sea of grim-faced purpose, and you learn the most important lesson of all. When the king's shadow grows long and dark, the fool must be wise enough to disappear into it. The tension in the castle remains thick for days. The king is consumed with the border skirmish. meeting endlessly with his military advisors. The Great Hall is no longer a place for feasts and revelry, but a makeshift war room. Naps are spread across the oaken tables, and the air hums with the grim talk of strategy and troop movements. There is no call for jokes or entertainment. Laughter has been exiled from the court. Your role during this time is undefined and perilous. You are a living reminder of leisure and frivolity in a time of crisis, and your presence feels increasingly unwelcome. You make yourself scarce, haunting the corridors like a colorful ghost. Your bells a constant source of anxiety. You try to muffle them by walking carefully, but it is a futile effort. The jingle follows you everywhere, a sound of cheerfulness that is dangerously out of tune with the prevailing mood. You spend most of your time in the kennels, sharing the company of the hounds, who are at least blissfully unaware of human politics. You practice your skills in solitude, juggling stray stones, trying to compose rhymes in your head, practicing facial expressions in the reflective surface of a water bucket. You have to stay sharp. You know this crisis will eventually pass, and when it does, the king's demand for amusement will return. You must be ready. After a week, a messenger arrives with good news. The king's forces have repelled the raiders, capturing the rival Lord Death's nephew in the process. The crisis is over. The victory is decisive. And just like that, the storm breaks. The tension that had gripped the castle dissolves overnight, replaced by an atmosphere of triumphant celebration. A great feast is declared. The king is in a magnificent mood, magnanimous and expansive. He strides into the hall, accepts the congratulations of his nobles, and his eyes, for the first time in days, find you. There is a gleam in them. It has the look of a man who has taken care of business and is now ready for his reward, for his entertainment. Fool, he booms, his voice echoing in the packed hall. The kingdom is secure. My enemies are humbled. Surely such a glorious day deserves a glorious jest. Make us laugh. The pressure is immense. The entire court is watching, their mood ecstatic. They want a joke that matches the victory, something bold and clever. You feel a surge of confidence. You've had a week to prepare. You've honed a new story. A complex and witty tale about a fox who outsmarts two pompous wolves. It is a metaphor for the king's victory. Subtle enough to be clever, obvious enough for everyone to get it. You launch into your performance. You use different voices for the characters. You mimic the strut of the wolves, the sly movements of the fox. The story unfolds, and you can feel the audience with you. They are chuckling at the right moments, captivated by your telling. You are building towards the punchline, the triumphant moment where the fox traps the wolves in a cave. But as you reach the climax of your tale, you make a fatal miscalculation. In your enthusiasm, you get carried away by your own performance. The wolves in your story are not just pompous. You make them sound cowardly and foolish. You give one of them a lisp and a funny, mincing walk. The court roars with laughter. It is the loudest laugh you've ever gotten. You take a bow, your heart pounding with triumph. But when you look up at the king, he eyes into you laughing. His face, which had been so open and joyful, is now a frozen mask of fury. The smile is gone. His eyes are chips of ice. A cold dread washes over you. You don't understand. What did you do? The king rises slowly from his throne. The whole falls silent, the laughter dying in peopleless throats. The wolves in your tale, the king says, his voice dangerously soft. They bear a striking resemblance to the coat of arms of the Baron von Steiner, my mother, as cousin. The blood drains from your face. You had no idea. You didn't know the intricacies of the extended royal family as heraldry. In your attempt to entertain, you have just publicly, spectacularly, insulted the king's own blood, mocking his family as cowardly, unfoolish. This is a disastrous misstep, and it highlights the bizarre and often overlooked aspect of court life. The sheer amount of information a jester needed to memorize. It wasn't just jokes and songs, but also genealogies, rivalries, crests, and personal sensitivities. A single slip of the tongue could have serious diplomatic or personal repercussions, while some historians argue that such insults were sometimes intentional. a way for the king to mock someone by proxy. It was an incredibly dangerous game. You have just learned that you were playing it without knowing the rules. The king signals to 2 guards. "Take him," he says, his voice flattened, devoid of all its earlier warmth. 50 lashes. Let us see if the sting of the whip can teach him to mind his tongue. The guard sees you, the courtiers, who were laughing at your joke only moments before. Now look away. No one meets your eye. No one will help you. You are dragged from the hall, your triumphant performance sending in disgrace and pain. The bitter aftertaste of the joke is the coppery tang of fear in your mouth. You learn the hardest lesson yet. The king's laughter is a fickle and treacherous thing, and when it vanishes, there is nothing to protect you. The silence that follows is the sound of your own world falling apart. They don't take you to the dungeons. That, you learn, is reserved for traitors and high-value prisoners. Your punishment is less formal, more humiliating. You are dragged out into the same muddy courtyard where you first crossed over to the kennels. You are stripped of your motley tunic, the chill air raising goosebumps on your skin. Your hands are tied to a wooden post, the rough embers scraping against your wrists. The 50 lashes are delivered by a burly guard with arms like oak limbs. He doesn't wield the whip with anger, but with a detached, methodical efficiency that is somehow worse. Each lash is a line of fire across your back. You bite down on your lip to keep from screaming, the taste of your own blood filling your mouth. The assembled crowd is small, a few off-duty guards, some kitchen servants, and a handful of stable hands who watch with a grim, silent fascination. This is another form of entertainment, a cautionary tale played out on your skin. When it is over, you are cut down, your back a raw, burning canvas of pain. You collapse into the mud, your body trembling uncontrollably. No one offers a hand. You are left there, a miserable heap of humanity, until the kennel master, with his usual grunt of indifference, hauls you to your feet and shoves you back towards your bed of straw. For the next few days, you exist in a haze of pain. Lying on your back is impossible, and every movement sends fresh waves of agony through you. The dogs seem to understand. They keep their distance, whining softly, their usual boisterousness subdued. Your only visitor is the silent page who brings your daily bowl of gruel. The world of the court, of power and politics, feels a million miles away. You are nothing but a wounded animal, hidden away in the dark. But as the physical pain slowly subsides, a different kind of awareness sharpens. Your senses, honed by your time in the kennels, become more acute. The castle is a living organism, and you begin to learn its secret rhythms, its hidden language. Lying on your straw mattress, you realize the walls are not as solid as they seem. Sounds travel in strange and unexpected ways. You learn that the faint, rhythmic clinking you hear late at night is the sound of the treasurer counting coins in the chamber directly above the kennels. You can hear the scrape of his chair, the murmur of his voice as he adds up figures. You can't make out the words, but you can discern the cadence of his thoughts. A pipe that runs down the wall near your corner carries voices from a third-floor solar, a private chamber used by the queen and her ladies-in-waiting. Their laughter and gossip travel down the pipe, distorted and ghostly, like voices from another world. You start to piece together their conversations. You learn which lady-in-waiting is in favor and which is out. You learn of the queen's frustration with the king's new hunting falcon, a frustration she would never dare voice in public. You become an unwilling repository of secrets. You are a passive spy, a living listening device. Your lowly position, your very invisibility, makes you the perfect confidant, because no one even knows you are listening. They don't think of the fool, the animal sleeping among the dogs. The strange reality of castle acoustics is a fascinating, if minor, historical point. Castles were not the soundproof fortresses we imagine. They were full of oddly connected spaces, speaking tubes created by chance, and stone walls that carried whispers far from their source. Historians who study castle architecture sometimes note these acoustic leaks, but the implications for the people living within them, especially those at the bottom of the social ladder, are rarely considered. Were servants and other lower-ranking inhabitants a constant, unknown source of intelligence leakage? It is a question that challenges our view of a rigidly controlled court hierarchy. One evening, huddled in your blanket, you overhear something that makes the fine hairs on your arms stand up. It is not gossip. It is the low, urgent murmur of two male voices coming through a ventilation slit near the floor. You recognize one of them immediately. Sir Reginald, the vain baron you insulted on your first night. The other voice is unfamiliar, but it carries an accent from the northern territories, the domain of the king's recently defeated rival. Their conversation is fragmented, but the words you can make out are chilling. The shipment will arrive with the wine convoy, disguised in the barrels, enough to arm 20 men. When the king is at the hunt, you phrase, your breath caught in your throat. This is anti-courtly intrigue. This is treason. Sir Reginald, nursing his wounded pride and 1,000 other hidden grievances, is plotting against the king. He is planning to smuggle weapons into the castle. A wave of nausea and terror washes over you. What do? You are the king's fool, but you are a disgraced fool. You've been whipped and thrown aside. Who would believe you? Accusing a powerful baron like Sir Reginald is a death sentence if you ray wrong. And even if you ray right, how do you deliver this information without revealing its source? Admitting you overheard, it would expose your listening post. And who knows what other secrets you'd be accused of hoarding. You are trapped by the very knowledge that could save the king. The walls have ears, and those ears are yours. But to speak of what you've heard is to invite a scrutiny that could be just as fatal as the plot you've uncovered. You lie there in the dark, the secret burning a hole in your mind, a weight far heavier than the 50 lashes. You are no longer just an entertainer. You are a witness. And in a nest of vipers, the witness is often the first to be silenced. The secret festers inside you like a poison. For 2 days, you are paralyzed by indecision. Every shadow seems to hold a threat. Every footstep outside the kennel door sends a jolt of panic through you. You rehearse 100 different ways to warn the king, and every single one ends with your own demise. Go to the captain of the guard. He is a close ally of Sir Reginald. Write an anonymous note. You can't write, and even if you could, it would likely be dismissed as a prank. Your back is beginning to heal, the raw sting dulling to a persistent ache. The kennel master, seeing you are mobile again, shoves a broom into your hands and puts you to work mucking out the straw. The physical labor is a strange blessing, a mindless task to occupy you while your mind races. It is during this task that you are summoned. A page, with a look of distaste on his face, informs you that you are wanted in the Queen's cellar. The Queen, this is unexpected. You have had almost no interaction with her. She is a quiet, reserved woman, often overshadowed by the king's boisterous personality. Her summons feels like a test, another unpredictable variable in this deadly equation. You are led to her chambers, a world away from the grime of the kennels. The air is warm, scented with lavender and dried herbs. Sunlight streams through a large, glass-paned window, an immense luxury, illuminating the rich tapestries on the walls and the polished wood of the furniture. The queen is seated by the window, doing embroidery with her ladies in waiting. They stop their chatter as you enter, your patched and faded motley a jarring splash of vulgarity in this serene environment. You bow low, your bows giving a muted, apologetic tinkle. The queen dismisses her ladies with a flick of her wrist. When they are gone, she fixes you with a cool, intelligent gaze. You are the king's new fool, she says. It is not a question. Her voice is low and steady, but there is an edge to it. You are whipped for a joke about the Baron von Steiner. My kinsman, you nod, your throat too dry to speak. The king found your jest insulting. She continues, her needle pausing over her embroidery. I, however, found it amusing. The Baron von Steiner is a pompous fool, and my husband's mother was a fool to marry his cousin. You are stunned into silence. This is a breathtakingly candid admission, a direct contradiction of the king's reaction. You are standing in the middle of a marital disagreement. A political fault line you didn't even know existed. The king, she says, her eyes narrowing slightly, values loyalty above all else. But he often mistakes flattery for loyalty. He surrounds himself with men who tell him what he wants to hear. Men like Sir Reginald. She says the name with a subtle, cutting disdain. You, on the other hand, told the truth, however clumsily. You made the mistake of making the king choose between his pride and the truth he secretly enjoys. He chose pride. He always does. She is giving you a masterclass in court politics. A glimpse into the intricate machinery of power that you have so far failed to grasp. Pleasing the king is not a simple task. Sometimes, pleasing the king means angering the queen, or a powerful bishop, or a visiting dignitary, and their displeasure can be just as dangerous as the king's. You exist on a knife's edge, and you've just learned the blade is sharpened on both sides. This highlights the precarious position of women at court, even those of the highest rank. A queen's power was often indirect, exercised through influence, alliances, and a deep understanding of the court's personalities. Historians often debate the true extent of a queen consort's political power. Was she merely a figurehead, or a savvy political operator in her own right? The queen before you is clearly the latter. A player in the game whose moves are simply quieter and more subtle than the king's. I have a task for you, she says, finally getting to the point. At the feast tonight, the king will be celebrating the arrival of a new vintage of Ornish wine, a gift from a southern lord. I want you to make a jest about our grapes, about gifts that seem sweet but leave a bitter taste. The wine convoy, the words from your secretives dropping echo in your mind. The queen knows, or, at least, she suspects something. She is using you, the fool, to plant a seed of doubt in the king's mind. A warning he would never accept from her directly. This is the truth wrapped in a riddle. That is your profession's highest calling. She is offering you a path, a way to deliver your message without revealing its source. It is a terrifying gamble. If the king is in the wrong mood, he could see it as another insult. But it is also a lifeline. It is a chance to align yourself with a different, perhaps more cunning, center of power within the court. You also learn a curious tidbit of social history here. The queen's separate audience with you was not unusual. In many medieval courts, the queen had her own household, her own budget, and sometimes even her own fool. While the king's fool was a public figure of the entire court, a queen's fool could be a more private, intimate entertainer. The lines were often blurry, and a clever fool could potentially serve both, navigating the treacherous waters between the royal couple. Can you do this, fool? She asks, her eyes searching your face. Can you craft a joke that is a warning, but not an accusation? You look at this powerful woman who has just offered you a way out of your terrible dilemma. She is not your friend. She is using you for her own purposes, to counter her husband's blind spots and to undermine her rivals. But her purpose is, for this one moment, align with your own survival and the safety of the kingdom. You find your voice. Yes, your majesty, you rasp. A fool can speak of sour grapes. It is a taste he knows well. A flicker of a smile touches her lips, as brief and as sharp as the glint of her needle. Good, she says. Do not disappoint me. You may find I am a more reliable patron than my husband. She picks up her embroidery again. A clear dismissal. You bow and back out of the room, the bells on your hat jingling with a newfound, terrifying purpose. You now have two masters, and you have to serve one without the other knowing. As you leave the queen's solar, your mind reeling with the new and dangerous task she has given you, you nearly collide with the figure shuffling down the corridor. He is a man, but he is unlike anyone you have seen at court. He is short, with a hunched back and a leg that twists at an awkward angle, forcing him into a lurching, crab-like walk. He is dressed in motley, just like you, but his is faded and patched. The colors bled into a dull, melancholy version of your own garish uniform. He carries a lute, its strings frayed, and he hums a tuneless, mournful melody to himself. This is Tom. He is the court's other fool. You had heard whispers of him, but this is the first time you've seen him up close. Tom is what was known as a natural fool. You are an artificial fool. The distinction is as cruel as it is simple. You, the artificial fool, are a man of able body and sound mind, who is paid in lodging and food, at least to act the part of the fool, to use your wits and talents to entertain. Tom, the natural fool, was born with physical and developmental disabilities. He is not acting. His role as a jester is not a performance. It is a cage built from the circumstances of his birth. He looks up at you. His eyes widen startlingly clear in a face that is otherwise slack and simple. He offers you a broad, guileless smile. New bells, he says, his voice thick and slow. He reaches out a hand and gently touches one of the bells on your collar, making it jingle. Shiny, there is no malice in him, no jealousy, only a childlike curiosity. And in that moment, you feel a wave of shame so profound it almost knocks you off your feet. You have been wallowing in your own misfortune, the fear, the whipping, the humiliation. But your role is a costume you could, in theory, one day take off. His is not. You are a prisoner of the king's whim. He is a prisoner of his own body and mind, his condition commodified for the court's amusement. This distinction between natural and artificial fools is a key and deeply uncomfortable aspect of the history of court jesters. Natural fools were often kept as human pets, their disabilities a source of morbid curiosity and cruel humor. They were seen as innocents, creatures of God who were unburdened by sin and reason, and their utterances were sometimes interpreted as divine prophecy. Artificial fools like you, on the other hand, were entertainers, expected to be sharp, witty, and skilled. The relationship between these two types of fools is a subject of historical debate. Did they see each other as rivals for the court's attention, or was there a strange sort of kinship, a shared understanding of their unique and precarious positions? Some accounts suggest artificial fools would sometimes act as protectors for their more vulnerable counterparts, while others hint at cruel exploitation. You look at Tom, at his tattered motley, and his simple smile, and you feel not rivalry, but a deep, aching pity. He is a mirror showing you a different, perhaps even crueler, version of your own life. The Queen, Tom says, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, though he is loud enough for anyone in the corridor to hear. She gives you sweets if you sing her the sad songs. Not the king. The king likes the loud songs, the sword-clashing songs. In his own simple way, he has just confirmed everything the Queen told you. He has learned, through his own set of experiences, to read the two opposing poles of power in this castle. He understands the emotional economies of the king and queen, and he navigates them to get what he wants in his case. As simple sweet, he is a survivor, just like you, but his tools are different. You spend a few minutes with him in the corridor, a strange tableau in your matching, yet starkly different. Costumes. He shows you a trick he can do, where he can pop his shoulder out of its socket with a sickening clunk, then snap it back into place. He does it with a proud grin, as if showing off a hard-won skill. The ladies in waiting used to shriek and give him candied fruit for it. He explains the casual horror of it, the way he has turned his own physical ailment into a party trick for survival, is heartbreaking. This touches upon a truly bizarre and little-known aspect of the natural fool phenomena, the deliberate acquisition of people with unusual medical conditions by nobles. Wealthy lords would actively seek out and collect individuals with dwarfism, hunchbackism, or other visible deformities, seeing them as status symbols. There are household records that list payments made for the purchase or transport of such individuals, treating them no differently than a new hound or a bolt of silk. As you part ways with Tom, you feel a renewed sense of purpose, but it is tinged with a deep sadness. Your upcoming performance, your clever joke about sour grapes, suddenly feels less like a death-defying act of wit and more like a grim necessity. You are part of a system that is not just politically treacherous, but fundamentally cruel. It takes the most vulnerable, like Tom, and turns them into props. It takes a man with a quick mind, like you, and puts him on a tightrope, forcing him to dance for his supper. You now understand that your role isn't just about making people laugh. It is about being whatever your masters need you to be. A wit, a scapegoat, a weapon, a pet. You see Tom shuffle away, humming his sad, tuneless song, and you realize that the most foolish thing in this entire castle isn't the man in the motley. It is the belief that you have any real control over your own fate. You are both just jesters, dancing in the same cage. His is just more visible than yours. The great hall is ablaze with light and noise. The feast to celebrate the arrival of the Dionish wine is even more lavish than the one on your first night. The king, fully recovered from his wartime footing, is in a boisterous, expansive mood. He is drinking heavily, his laughter booming through the hall as he regales his nobles with embellished tales of his recent victory. Sir Reginald is at his side, looking smug and triumphant, occasionally leaning in to whisper a flattering comment into the king's ear. Your heart hammers against your ribs. This is the moment. The queen is seated at the high table, her expression serene and unreadable, but you feel her gaze on you. A weight of expectation. You have to thread the needle perfectly. The joke must be sharp enough to pierce the king's drunken bonhomie and plant the seed of suspicion, but veiled enough that it cannot be traced back to the queen or seen as a direct accusation against Sir Reginald. You take a deep breath and step into the center of the hall, your bells announcing your presence. The king sees you and grins, waving a greasy hand. The fool, finally, come, fool. What wisdom have you gleaned from your time with my hounds? Do they have any witty insights on the nature of loyalty? He winks at his courtiers, a clear reference to your recent punishment. The court chuckles. It is a test. He is reminding you of your place, of the pain that follows a misstep. You must acknowledge it, but not show weakness. You bow low, your face a mask of practiced humility. Indeed, your majesty, you say, your voice clear and steady. The hounds have taught me a great deal. They taught me that a master's hand can offer a feast or a flogging, and a wise dog learns the scent of both. But my greatest lesson came not from a dog, but from a fox I met in the yard. This piques his interest. The king loves stories about animals, fables that simplify the world into primal conflicts. This fox, you continue, your eyes scanning the crowd before locking onto the kingess, was boasting of a great treasure he had found, a vine laden with the most beautiful, purple grapes he had ever seen. He told all the other animals of their sweetness, of their intoxicating juice. He promised them a taste of this glorious fruit. You pause, letting the image settle. You can see Sir Reginald smiling, thinking the story is in his honor, a tribute to the wine he has helped procure. But a wise old crow, perched on a branch above, called down to him. The crow said, "Be wary, my friends, of gifts that arrive with too much promise. I have seen those vines before. The grapes are beautiful, yes, but they are grown in poisoned soil. They look sweet, but they are full of soreness and regret. They are the kind of grapes that, if you press them, the only wine they make is the wine of betrayal." You deliver the last line with a sudden, sharp intensity, and then you fall silent. The air in the hall shifts. The meaning is unmistakable, yet deniable. It is a riddle. It is a fable. It is a direct warning. You have not mentioned Sir Reginald. You have not mentioned weapons or treason. You have only told a story about a fox, the crow, and some sour grapes. The king's drunken smile falters. He stares at you, his brow furrowed. The cogs of his mind, slowed by wine, are beginning to turn. He glances at the large barrels of the new wine, waiting to be tapped. He looks at Sir Reginald, whose own smile has vanished, replaced by a look of sudden, panicked fury. He understands that you have just insulted his gift. Sir Reginald rises to his feet. Your Majesty, this foolish impudence is beyond measure. He insults your victory, your allies, but the king holds up a hand, silencing him. He continues to stare at you, his expression unreadable. This is the moment of truth. Has your riddle worked, or has it simply signed your death warrant? This is the very essence of the Jester's art of truth-telling. It was almost never a direct statement. Historians who analyze the recorded sayings of famous jesters like Will Summers or Archie Armstrong find that their most potent political commentary was always couched in allegory, riddles, or seemingly nonsensical rhymes. It was a sophisticated form of communication that allowed for plausible deniability on all sides. The king could choose to understand the hidden meaning, or he could choose to hear only the surface-level joke, depending on his political needs. The debate among scholars is whether these jesters were political geniuses in their own right, or simply gifted mouthpieces for the factions like the queen who fed them their lines. You hold your breath. The king's eyes narrow, not with the anger of a man who has been insulted, but with the shrewdness of a man who has just been reminded that he might be a fool himself. He looks from you to Sir Reginald, and for the first time, a flicker of genuine suspicion crosses his face. He has been given a reason to doubt, and it came from the one person in the room whose words can be dismissed at a moment's notice if they prove inconvenient. You have given him a weapon to use, without leaving your own fingerprints on it. The fool is a fool, the king says slowly, his voice now dangerously sober. His words are wind, but even the wind can carry a chill. He turns to the captain of the guard. Captain, he commands, his voice like iron. Before we toast our good fortune, perhaps you should have your men inspect the vintage thoroughly. Check every barrel for spoilage. The command is clear. So Reginald Death's face turns ashen. He knows what they will find. You have done it. You have landed the message. You have walked the tightrope of truth, wrapped in a riddle, and you have made it to the other side. You look towards the queen. Her face is impassive, but as her eyes meet yours, she gives a single, almost imperceptible nod. It is a nod of approval, a confirmation of your success. You have served your new mistress well, but in doing so, you have made a mortal enemy of one of the most powerful men in the court. And you have no idea what the king will do to the messenger once the message has been received. The discovery of the weapons in the wine barrels throws the castle into a state of quiet, disciplined chaos. There is no public alarm, no panic ringing of bells. The king is too cunning for that. The feast continues, but it is a hollow affair. The king smiles and drinks from his own personal flask. You notice while the captain of the guard's men, with brutal efficiency, quietly arrests Sir Reginald and his handful of conspirators. It is all done with a chilling lack of drama. One moment, the Baron is at the high table. The next, he is gone, his seat empty, his plate of half-eaten boar growing cold. You are forgotten in the turmoil. You slip away from the great hall, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. You have succeeded beyond your wildest imaginations. You have saved the king, served the queen, and brought down your enemy. For a fleeting moment, you feel a surge of power, a dizzying sense of importance, but the feeling doesn't last. The next day, the reality of your position comes crashing down on you. The court is buzzing with the news of the foiled plot. The official story, disseminated with practiced speed, is that the king's own peerless vigilance and the sharp eyes of his guard captain uncovered the treason. Your name is not mentioned. Your fable of the sour grapes is dismissed as a fool less lucky coincidence, a happy accident. You receive no reward, no acknowledgement, no word of thanks from the king. You are once again irrelevant, a colorful footnote to a story you helped write. Worse, you become a target. The remaining members of Sir Reginald Death's faction, the friends and allies who were not directly implicated in the plot, know that your joke was the catalyst. They cannot accuse you openly, for that would be to admit their own proximity to treason. So they resort to a different kind of warfare, the casual, soul-crushing cruelty of the born and powerful. You become their designated punching bag. As you walk through the courtyards, a young knight accidentally trips you, sending you sprawling into the mud. To the delighted laughter of his companions, at meals, where you are now permitted to sit at the lowest table, a page mistakenly spills a pitcher of cold water on you. Your already lumpy mattress in the kennels is mysteriously infested with biting fleas. These are small, petty torments, each one insignificant on its own, but together they form a campaign of relentless misery. They are careful never to leave a mark that could be seen as a direct assault. It is the sophisticated bullying of the upper classes, designed to break your spirit, not your bones. One afternoon, a group of young squires corners you in a stable. They are led by a particularly nasty youth, a cousin of Sir Reginald S. "Teach us a trick." "Fool," he says with a sneer, pushing you against a wall. "We are bored." They daunting want a joke or a riddle. They want a spectacle. They demand you juggle. They start by tossing you apples, which you manage to keep in the air. Then they move on to rocks, their edges sharp. A rock grazes your forehead, opening a small cut. They laugh. Then the leader pulls a dagger from his belt. "Juggle this," he says, tossing it to you. The dagger is a real one, its blade gleaming. This is no longer a prank. It is a threat wrapped in the guise of a game. To refuse is to show fear, which will only invite more torment. To accept is to risk serious injury. This is a side of the Jester's life rarely depicted in romantic tales, the role of the physical scapegoat. The fool was often the target of slapstick humor, which in a brutal age could be genuinely violent. The line between a playful shove and a dangerous assault was dangerously thin, and entirely dependent on the whims of the powerful. Historians sometimes find mention of fools being injured during court festivities, their pain presented as part of the entertainment. The question of whether the fool was a willing participant in these dangerous games or simply had no choice is a grim one. You, with a dagger spinning in the air towards you, know the answer. You catch the dagger by the hilt, a stroke of luck, and for a heart-stopping moment, you juggle it with the rocks. The squires watch, their taunts momentarily silenced by the flash of real danger. But your hands are sweating, your focus wavering. You know you can keep this up. Just as your nerve is about to break, a sharp voice cuts through the air. That is enough. It is the captain of the guard. He stands at the entrance to the stable, his face like granite. The squires freeze, their bravado evaporating instantly. The leader snatches the dagger out of the air. "We were just having some sport with the fool, Captain," the squire stammers. The captain's eyes are cold. "The fool belongs to the king," he says, his voice low and menacing. "And the king does not like it when other people play with his toys. Find something else to do with your boredom." Now, the squires scramble away, leaving you trembling, the adrenaline draining away to leave a cold residue of fear. The captain of the guard watches them go, then turns his gaze on you. He doesn't offer a word of comfort. He simply looks at the small cut on your forehead, then at you, a long, calculating look. "Be more careful," he says, before turning and walking away. It is not a word of advice. It is a command, and it is a confirmation of your status. You are a thing, a toy, a piece of property. Your only protection comes not from any sense of justice or compassion, but from the fact that you are owned by the most powerful man in the castle. The squires were not reprimanded for their cruelty to you, a person. They were reprimanded for mishandling the king's property. You are safe, but you have never felt more dehumanized. The physical torments from Sir Reginald's cronies eventually lessen, thanks to the captain of the guard's chilling intervention. They no longer dare to be openly aggressive, but the cruelty simply changes form, becoming a more subtle, psychological venom. It becomes a weapon of isolation. You are now a fixture at court, a recognized face. You eat in the great hall, though at the lowest table. You stand by the king's throne during audiences. You are present at every festivity. You are constantly surrounded by people, adrift in a sea of faces. Yet you have never felt more alone. The loneliness is a physical presence, a cold cloak that settles over you even in the warmest, most crowded rooms. The nobles and courtiers have perfected the art of looking through you. They will talk around you, their conversations flowing as if you're a piece of furniture, a candelabra, or a tapestry. Their gaze slides past you, refusing to acknowledge your personhood. You are visible, but unseen. The servants, who might have once offered a shared glance of solidarity, now keep their distance. They see you as something other, something dangerous. You are touched by the world of power, a world they wisely avoid. You are not one of them. You tried once to share a simple joke with a kitchen maid, and she just flushed with fear and hurried away, as if being seen talking to you was a crime. Even your relationship with the hounds has changed. The kennel master, under some new order, has forbidden you from letting them out of their pens. Your brief moments of simple, non-judgmental companionship are gone. Your world is shrinking, the walls closing in. You try to bridge the chasm. During a feast, you approach a group of younger knights, attempting to engage them with a light-hearted rhyme you've composed. They listen, a few of them even crack a smile, but the moment you finish, the conversation resumes as if you weren't ever there. You are left standing on the outside of their circle, a ghost at the feast. This profound isolation was likely one of the greatest psychological burdens of being a court jester. You are a professional outsider. Your entire function is to stand apart from the social structure so you can comment on it. But to be a successful commentator, you must be observant, empathetic, and understand human nature, skills that are honed through connection. Yet your very role prevents you from forming the genuine bonds that would allow for that connection. It is a cruel paradox. Historians often debate the emotional lives of jesters, or the embittered cynics, lonely artists, or just hardened professionals who accepted their isolation as part of the job. It is impossible to know for certain, as personal accounts from jesters are virtually non-existent. Their inner lives are lost to history. All we have are the records of their jokes and their official duties, not the silence that came afterward. Your only fleeting moments of connection are with the two people who represent the opposite poles of your existence. Sometimes, when you are standing by the throne, the king, in a rare moment of idleness, will ask you a direct question, not as a king to a fool, but as one man to another. Do you think it will rain tomorrow? Fool, he might ask, looking out the window, and for a brief second, you are not a jester, but just a man with an opinion on the weather. These moments are brief and rare, like tiny islands in a vast ocean of loneliness. The other connection is with Tom, the natural fool. You seek him out sometimes, finding him in a forgotten corner of the garden or by the casts, a less fish pond. Your conversations are simple, disjointed. You talk about the color of the sky, the taste of the bread, the feel of the sun. He doesn't understand the complex political games or the crushing weight of your responsibilities. He only understands the immediate, the tangible, and in his company, you find a strange sort of peace. With Tom, you are not the clever fool. You are not the disgraced fool. You are not the king has property. You are just you. He looks at you without expectation, without judgment. His loneliness is different from yours. His is the loneliness of being misunderstood. Yours is the loneliness of being understood all too well, but only as a tool. You recall a strange, sad detail from the household accounts of a French duke. The records show the purchase of 2 sets of motley, one for the duke as artificial fool, and one for a monkey he had also acquired. The two were apparently expected to perform together. It is a small, bizarre fact, but it speaks volumes about the jester's perceived place in the social hierarchy, interchangeable with an animal, valued for the spectacle, not the soul. One night, unable to sleep, you climb to the battlements of the castle. The world is quiet. Below you, the castle sleeps. In the distance, the lights of a small village flicker. You are high above it all, a silent observer in your ridiculous clothes. The wind whips around you, and for a moment, the sound drowns out the incessant, mocking jingle of your bells. You look out at the sleeping world and feel a loneliness so vast and so complete that it almost has a physical weight. You are the funniest man in the kingdom, the man paid to bring joy and laughter. Then you are utterly, completely alone. The king decides to host a midwinter festival, a week-long extravaganza designed to banish the gloom of the short, dark days and to display his wealth and power to a delegation of visiting nobles from a neighboring kingdom. The castle transforms. The great hall is decked with evergreen boughs and holly. The kitchens, which normally operate with a grim efficiency, become a frantic hub of glorious creation. From your lowly vantage point, you witness the preparations with a kind of detached awe. You see whole carts of winter apples and pears being unloaded, pyramids of cheeses so large they have to be rolled in by 2 men, and barrels upon barrels of spiced wine. The air, usually smelling of wood smoke and damp stone, is now thick with the intoxicating aromas of baking bread, roasting cinnamon, and sizzling meat. You watch as the royal cooks, sweating and swearing in the hellish heat of the kitchens, prepare a centerpiece for the main feast, a coq in choice. This was a real, and frankly bizarre, medieval dish, a culinary monstrosity created by sewing the front half of a suckling pig to the back half of a large turkey or capon, roasting it, and then serving it up as if it were a single, mythical beast. It was pure theater on a plate, a dish designed not just for taste, but for spectacle and shock value. You see the silver stimmus polishing the king-esque great silver platters until they gleam like mirrors. You see the ladies in waiting carefully arranging candied fruits and intricate sugar sculptures, known as subtleties, which were elaborate, edible dioramas depicting castles, knights, or religious scenes. You are surrounded by an avalanche of luxury, a tidal wave of sensory indulgence. And then you get your meal, as the great feast begins, and the nobles groan under the weight of a dozen courses. A server brings you your dinner. You are still seated at the foot of the lowest table, a position that has become your permanent home. Your meal consists of a trencher, a thick slab of stale bread that serves as a plate on which is piled a heap of meat scraps and gristle, the fatty cast-offs from the main roasts. You are given a chipped clay mug of watered down, sour ale, the dregs from the bottom of the barrel. You eat with your fingers, tearing at the tough meat while the scents of peacock pie and saffron-spiced stews waft down from the high table. You watch the king and his guests drink the finest Ornish wine from jewel-encrusted goblets, while you sip your thin, bitter ale. The contrast is not just insulting. It is a carefully constructed piece of social theater. Your meager meal, in full view of the lavish feast, is a deliberate statement. It reinforces the social order. It says, this is what true wealth looks like, and this is what is left for those at the very bottom. This practice of feeding the lower members of the household on leftovers was standard. What makes the Jester as position unique is the proximity to the luxury. A stable hand ate scraps, but he ate them in the stables. You are forced to eat your scraps while staring at the feast, a constant, visceral reminder of the chasm between you and the people you are paid to entertain. The historical accuracy of this is well documented in household accounts, which often list different qualities of food and drink for different levels of the social hierarchy. The household, meaning the family and high-ranking guests, ate first, and the servants and lower retainers ate second, which literally meant they ate the leftovers. There is a continuous debate among food historians about how much a person's diet was a reflection of their actual social status versus just the practical logistics of feeding a large castle. But for you, sitting with your bread plate and gristle, it feels deeply personal, as you are chewing on a particularly tough piece of fat. One of the visiting lords, the portly man with a cruel smile, notices you. Look, he bellows, pointing a sausage-like finger in your direction. The king as fool eats as well as the king as hounds. His table erupts in laughter. The king, well, into his cups, laughs along with him. It is a casual, thoughtless cruelty, a joke made at your expense to entertain a guest. You are part of the spectacle, no different from the cock and trice or the sugar castle. You look down at your trencher, your appetite gone. In that moment, you feel a kinship with the bizarre creature that was served as the centerpiece. You are both cobbled together things, part one creature, part another, designed for the amusement of the powerful, to be consumed and then forgotten. You are expected to perform later, to be witty and light-hearted after this public humiliation. You are supposed to make the very people who just laughed at your poverty laugh with you. It is an act of psychological contortion that feels almost impossible. You must swallow your resentment, your humiliation, and your sour ale, and you must transform it all into a joke. You look up and catch the eye of the queen. She is not laughing. She watches the scene with a cool, detached expression. She takes a small, perfect pear from a silver bowl in front of her. She catches the eye of a serving boy, and with a subtle, almost imperceptible nod, gestures towards you. A few moments later, the boy nervously approaches your table. He doesn't say a word. He just places the single, perfect pear beside your treacherous scraps and hurries away. It is a small gesture, almost invisible to the rest of the court. But to you, it is everything. It is a secret, a shared moment of defiance. It is a reminder of your secret alliance, a confirmation that someone at the high table sees you as more than just a dog. The pear sits on your rough wooden table, a jewel of sweetness amidst the garbage. It is a taste of the feast, a taste of hope, but you know it as not a gift. It as a payment, a retainer for future services. The pear from the queen is a double-edged gift. It is a symbol of her favor, a small comfort in your sea of humiliation. But it is also a reminder that her patronage comes with strings. You are her piece on the great chessboard of the court, a minor piece, a pawn or perhaps a strange moving knight, but a piece nonetheless. And a few days after the midwinter festival, she decides to move you. You are summoned not to her solar this time, but to the cast a less quiet, chilly chapel. It is a strategic choice of location, a place that is both public and private, where a meeting can seem accidental, and where the presence of God is supposed to encourage honesty. She is there, ostensibly examining the new altar cloth, though her ladies are nowhere in sight. She gets straight to the point. The visiting delegation from the north. She begins, her voice a low murmur that barely disturbs the sacred silence. The king is considering a marriage alliance. His niece for the northern lord, Death's eldest son. You listen, unsure where this is going. This is high politics, far above your station. I do not approve, she continues, tracing the golden embroidery on the cloth with a single finger. The northern lord is ambitious. He is not to be trusted. This alliance would strengthen him, and in time, he could become a threat to my own son's inheritance. Her words are cold, calculated, and utterly devoid of sentiment. She is thinking of the future, of the dynasty, of her child Death's hold on the throne. The king is charmed by the northern lord Death's flattery. He will not listen to my counsel. He sees it as a woman's fear, but he might listen to gossip, to a well-placed rumor, to a joke. She turns her gaze from the altar cloth and fixes it on you. The implication is clear. She wants you to start a rumor. She wants you to use your unique position as the court as full, the one who is both visible and invisible, to spread a imaging story about the visiting lord. They say, she says, her voice dropping even lower, that the northern lord Death's wife was barren for many years, and that his handsome, strapping eldest son bears a remarkable resemblance to a certain stable master from his youth. A story like that a funny story. Of course, about a cuckoo in the nest, it might make the king reconsider the purity of the bloodline he is marrying into. You are stunned. This is a new level of the game, and it is infinitely more dangerous than the fable about Tsar grapes. That was a warning. This is a character assassination. It is a vicious, unfounded rumor designed to wreck a political alliance and humiliate a noble family, and she wants you to be the author of it. This is the dark side of the fool's license. While we romanticize jesters as truth-tellers, it is highly probable they were also used as tools for slander and disinformation. A powerful court figure, like a queen or a spy master, could use the fool to launch a smear campaign with complete plausible deniability. The fool tells a joke, and if the rumor takes root, the goal is achieved. If it backfires, the fool is punished for his impudence, and the true source of the rumor remains hidden. It is a perfect, risk-free political weapon for the user, and an incredibly high-risk gamble for the jester. Historians have long debated this. Are the scandalous stories that pop up in chronicles tales of infidelity, cowardice, or secret vices of powerful people the result of genuine historical events, or are they the successful remnants of politically motivated smear campaigns, spread by mouths like yours? It is a question that makes writing history from such sources incredibly difficult. I cannot, you whisper, the words catching in your throat. The risk is too great. If the northern lord discovers you are the source of this story, his anger will be boundless, And if the king finds out you are sabotaging his diplomatic efforts, even the queen's favor won't she save you. The queen's expression hardens. The war, if it was ever truly there, vanishes completely. You disappoint me, she says, her voice like ice. I thought you were a clever man. I see now you are just a coward. A King Estoy, who is happy with a scrap from the table and the occasional piece of fruit. Her words are a slap in the face. She is twisting your gratitude for the pair into an accusation of weakness. Let me be clear, she continues, taking a step closer. The king's favor is a flickering candle. He is fond of you now, but he will tire of you. A new face, the new wit will arrive, and you will be cast aside. My favor, however, is an investment. I protect my investments, but I also cut my losses when they fail to provide a return. She pauses, letting the threat hang in the air between you. You are either a useful tool, or you are a broken one, and I have no use for broken tools. Do you understand? The choice is laid bare before you. Become a pawn in her dangerous game, or lose her protection entirely. Without her, you are completely at the mercy of the king's whims and the petty cruelties of the court. With her, you are a purveyor of lies, a whisperer of poison. You think about the unexpected weight of that single pair. It was a gift. It was a chain. It was the first link in a bond of obligation that she is now pulling tight. You are caught between a rock and a hard place, between the king's power and the queen's ambition. You look at her cold, determined face, and you know there is no real choice. To refuse is to be abandoned. To accept is to step further into the shadows. To become a weapon in a war you want no part of. Slowly, you give a single, wretched nod. A flicker of triumph appears in her eyes. Good, she says. I will expect to hear some amusing new jests in the coming days. She turns and glides out of the chapel, leaving you alone in the cold, silent space. You have just sold a piece of your soul, and you suspect the price was far more than a single pair. You are trapped. The queen's command hangs over you like a headsman's axe. For days, you agonize over it, trying to devise a way to fulfill her order without completely immolating yourself. You compose a dozen different rhymes and riddles about cuckoos and stolen nests, and each one sounds like a signed confession of slander. Your wit, once your only shield, has become a weapon pointed at your own throat. But before you are forced to act, fate, in its own cruel and indifferent way, intervenes. A messenger arrives, his horse lathered and near death from exhaustion. He carries news from the south, where the king's eldest son and heir, a promising young man of 17, has been leading a small campaign against some troublesome bandits. The news is catastrophic. The prince, caught in an ambush, has been killed. A wave of shock and grief washes over the castle, so powerful and so absolute that it extinguishes everything else. The political maneuvering, the petty rivalries, the plans for marriage alliances, it all vanishes in an instant. The world of the court shrinks to the size of a single, devastating fact. The heir is dead. The castle is plunged into mourning. Brightly colored banners are replaced with black crepe. The sound of laughter is forbidden. The great hall, the scene of so many feasts, becomes a cavern of echoing silence, broken only by the muffled sounds of weeping. The king is destroyed. He retreats into his private chambers, refusing to see anyone but his most trusted advisors. The boisterous, confident monarch you knew is gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed, broken man. When you catch a glimpse of him in a corridor, he looks like he has aged 20 years in a single night. His grief is a terrifying, all-consuming force, and the queen, her grief is different. It is a cold, still, and silent thing. She moves through the castle like a ghost in black velvet, her face a pale, beautiful mask of sorrow. But behind the grief, you see something else flicker in her eyes, the cold, hard glint of political calculation. Her son, once second in line to the throne, is now the heir. The tragedy that has broken her husband has, in a cruel twist of fate, secured her own son's future. In this landscape of profound sorrow, You are utterly useless. Your purpose, to create laughter, is now a grotesque mockery of the court's mood. To tell a joke, any joke, would be an act of supreme insensitivity, an unforgivable crime. Laughter has died, and with it, your function. You are invisible again, but in a new way. Before, you were ignored. Now, you are simply irrelevant. You are a tool for which there is no current use. You spend your days in the kennels, the silence of your own grief mingling with the oppressive sorrow that blankets the entire castle. This situation, a Jester's role during a time of royal tragedy, is a fascinating and poorly documented area of court life. What happens to the comedian when the principal audience is incapable of laughter? Did they simply disappear from view, or was their role somehow transformed? Some scholars theorize that in such times, the fool's role might shift from wit to simple companionship, offering a silent, non-judgmental presence to a grieving monarch. It has a romantic notion that given the brutal realities of court life, it is just as likely they were seen as an inconvenient, even painful, reminder of happier times and were simply locked away or sent from court. One evening, you are sitting on your straw bed when the king himself appears at the door of the kennels. He is alone, without his guards or attendants. He is dressed in a simple black tunic, and he holds a flickering candle. The kennel master has vanished. The hounds are silent, as if sensing the weight of the man's sorrow. He looks at you, his eyes red-rimmed and empty. You expect anger, a command for you to leave his sight forever, but instead, he just looks tired, defeated. They are all whispering, he says, his voice a raw, broken rasp. The nobles, the priests, they all come to me with their long faces and their practiced words of comfort. He is with God now, they say. He died a hero's death. They are all lies, vultures, the lot of them, already wondering how his death will benefit them. He shuffles into the kennel, the smell of wet dog and straw seeming not to bother him. He slumps down onto a bale of hay, his shoulders slumped. He is not a king in this moment. He is just a father who has lost his son. You, he says, looking at you. You don't say anything. You just sit there, in your stupid, colorful clothes. They joke in a world where nothing is funny. You remain silent. There are no words. What could you possibly say? He is quiet for a long time, staring at the candle flame. Tell me a story. Fool, he says finally, his voice barely a whisper. Not a funny one. I don't see one to laugh. Just a story. About anything. A farmer planting his field. A fisherman mending his nets. Something simple. Something that I ask about kings, or princes, or death. And so, in the dim, smelly kennel, surrounded by sleeping dogs, you tell the king a story. You tell him about a man who spends his entire life building a small boat, a simple, sturdy boat, and sailing it on a quiet lake. It is a boring story, with no punchline, no clever twist, no moral. It is just a story about process, about patience, about something being slowly and carefully built. He listens, his eyes closed. When you finish, he doesn't speak. He just sits there in the darkness. The two of you, the broken king and his useless fool, sharing a moment of profound, silent grief. In this moment, you learn the hardest truth of all. Sometimes the Jester's greatest service is not when he makes people laugh, but when he gives them permission to be sad, by offering a silence that isn't empty, but full of a shared, unspoken understanding of their pain. When laughter fails, sometimes all that is left is a quiet story in the dark. The pall of grief over the castle begins to lift, not with a sudden return to joy, but with the slow, creeping return of routine. The king emerges from his chambers, his face still edged with sorrow, but his shoulders a little less stooped. The business of the kingdom, which had ground to a halt, slowly resumes. The court breathes again. The shallow, cautious breath. Your role, however, has been fundamentally altered. The king no longer looks to you for laughter. The easy, boisterous relationship you were beginning to build is gone, shattered by the princess' death. Now, when he looks at you, it is with a kind of weary sadness. Laughter feels like a betrayal of his son's memory. and so you are commanded not to be funny. But a king must have his diversions, and you are his primary source of it. If not jokes, then what? You are ordered to learn new skills. The king, seeking distraction in physical spectacle rather than intellectual wit, decides you will become an acrobat. The master-at-arms, a man with a face like a worn leather boot and a body made of gristle, is assigned as your tutor. He is not a gentle teacher. Your lessons take place in the castle-less training yard, in full view of the guards and knights. The master-at-arms is determined to make you a tumbler. You are forced to practice handsprings, cartwheels, and somersaults in your awkward motley, your bells jingling with every clumsy movement. You are not a natural acrobat. You are a man of words, not of motion. Your attempts are awkward, often painful. You land on your face. You twist your ankle. You pull muscles you didn't know you had. The knights and guards watch your daily humiliation with detached amusement. It is a new kind of sport for them. Your pain is the entertainment. This was an uncommon expectation for a jester. Many were multi-talented performers, musicians, singers, storytellers, and, yes, acrobats. Court jesters were the all-in-one entertainment package of the medieval world. The image of the fool as purely a verbal wit is a modern simplification. Many were expected to put their bodies on the line for a laugh. The academic debate here is one of specialization versus generalization. Were most jesters specialists in one area, like wit or music, or were they expected to be jacks of all trades? The records are ambiguous, mentioning various skills, but it isn't clear if every fool was expected to possess all of them. You, falling flat on your back for the 10th time, suspect the expectations were whatever the monarch decided they were that day. After weeks of painful practice, you achieve a clumsy competence. You can manage a series of wobbly cartwheels and a passable, if jarring, backflip. The king watches your performances with a distant, distracted air. He doesn't laugh, but it seems to occupy his mind. And for now, that is enough. But then, a troupe of traveling performers arrives at the castle. They are true professionals. They have fire eaters, jugglers who can keep a dozen objects in the air, and a woman who can dance on a tightrope. They are brilliant, and they make your clumsy efforts look pathetic. The king is captivated by them, particularly by their juggling. The next day, the master-at-arms appears with a set of heavy wooden clubs. The king wishes you to learn to juggle. He grunts, and your training begins anew. The clubs are heavy. You drop them constantly. They bruise your hands, your arms, your feet. It is a frustrating, monotonous, and painful process, but you persevere. Day after day, you practice in the yard. The thud of dropped clubs a constant rhythm to your life. This brings up a small, fascinating piece of history. The objects jesters juggled, while we imagine them with colorful balls. Historical accounts and illustrations show them juggling all sorts of things. Knives, apples, stones, and even, bizarrely, plates or lit candles. The element of danger was often a key part of the appeal. One day, as you are struggling with the clubs, Tom, the natural fool, shuffles over to you. He watches you for a while, a look of intense concentration on his face. Then, he picks up 3 stones from the ground, with a surprising, fluid grace you've never seen in him before. He begins to juggle them. He is not flashy, but his rhythm is perfect, hypnotic. The stones seem to float in the air, rising and falling in a perfect, silent dance. You stop your own clumsy attempts and just watch him, mesmerized. Here, in this one specific skill, he is not a natural fool. He is a master. He has a grace and a focus that you, the artificial fool, completely lack. He offers you a gap-toothed grin, as if to say, "See, that's easy." He tries to show you, guiding your hands, demonstrating the simple, fluid motion, and under his strange, silent tutelage, something clicks. You begin to get the rhythm. You manage to keep the 3 clubs in the air for a few seconds, then a few more. For the first time, it doesn't feel like a struggle. It feels like a dance. In that moment, the lines between the artificial and natural fool blur into meaningless. You, the man of wit, are being taught physical grace by a man considered to have no wits at all. He is your superior in this. The court may see him as a simpleton, a pit, but here in the dust of the training yard, he is the teacher and you are the student. You are no longer just a man of words. You are becoming a man of motion, a spectacle. You are juggling more than just clouds. You are juggling identities, skills, and the crushing expectations of a broken king. You are being reshaped, piece by painful piece, into a new kind of fool, one designed not to delight, but simply to distract. Winter deepens. A damp, persistent chill settles into the stones of the castle, a chill that no fire seems to be able to banish. The cold seeps into your bones, a constant companion in your bed of straw. Your diet of scraps and watery ale, combined with the physical exertion of your new training and the lingering psychological stress, takes its toll. You begin to feel unwell. It starts as a cough, a dry, hacking sound that rattles in your chest. Then comes the fever. One morning, you wake up shivering uncontrollably, despite not feeling cold. Your head throbs with a dull, insistent pain. Then every muscle in your body aches. The world seems to tilt and swim around you. When you try to stand, a wave of dizziness sends you collapsing back onto your mattress. You are sick, genuinely, seriously sick. The kennel master finds you there, curled in a miserable, shivering ball. He looks at you not with sympathy, but with annoyance. You are a disruption to his routine. He brings you a bowl of water but no food. Your daily gruel is forgotten. Your value, it seems, is directly tied to your ability to perform your duties. A sick fool is a useless fool. You lie there for what feels like an eternity, drifting in on doubt of a feverish, nightmarish sleep. The sounds of the kennels barking, the whining fade into a distant, distorted drone. You are too weak to move, to call for help. And who would you call for? Who in this entire castle cares about the health of a jester? This was the brutal reality of health and status in the medieval world. While a king or a high noble might receive the best possible care from a learned physician who would consult astrological charts and prescribe complex herbal remedies, a person of your station was left to the mercy of fate. Sickness was common, and for the lower classes, often a death sentence. There was no concept of paid sick leave. If you could not work, you were not fed. You either recovered on your own, or you did not. The historical record is starkly clear on this. Household accounts might list payments to a physician for treating the lord or his family, but they rarely, if ever, mention medical care for the lower-ranking servants or retainers. The debate among historians is whether this was pure callousness or a reflection of a fatalistic worldview, where sickness and health were seen as matters of divine will, particularly for the poor. On the second day of your fever, you have a visitor. It is not the king, nor the queen, nor even the silent page who brings your food. It is Tom. He shuffles into the kennel, holding something clutched in his hand. He sees you shivering on the mattress, and his usual simple grin is replaced by a look of concern. He kneels beside you, his presence surprisingly steady and comforting. "Cold?" he says, stating the obvious. He touches your forehead with the back of his hand, which is cool and dry. Hot. He that opens his own hand. In his palm is a small, wizened apple, clearly saved from a recent meal, and a chunk of dark, honey-sweetened bread, a rare treat usually reserved for the high table. He must have been given it as a reward for some antic, and he has brought it to you. He breaks off a small piece of the bread and patiently, gently, pushes it towards your lips. You are too weak to resist. You manage to chew and swallow it. The sweetness is a shock to your system, a tiny spark of life in the gray fog of your illness. He does the same with the apple, holding it while you take a small, weak bite. He doesn't have medicine. He doesn't have any healing knowledge. All he has is a simple, profound act of kindness. He has shared his own meager treasure with you. While the powerful masters you serve have forgotten you exist, this man, this natural fool whom the court dismisses as less than human, is the only one showing you compassion. This moment touches on a little known, and rather sad, aspect of medieval folk medicine, the belief in the healing power of innocence. It was sometimes thought that a touch or a prayer from someone considered pure of heart, like a child or a person with a developmental disability like Tom, could have curative properties. Their perceived closeness to God was thought to give them a special connection to divine healing. While it isn't likely Tom is thinking this, his actions are a simple, human echo of this belief system. He is trying to heal you with the only thing he has, his own simple goodness. Tom stays with you for hours, occasionally wiping your brow with a damp rag he has dipped in the water bowl. He hums his tuneless songs, a sound that is no longer mournful, but strangely soothing. His presence is a silent vigil, a stubborn refusal to let you fade away. That evening, the fever breaks. You wake up drenched in sweat, but the violent shivering has stopped, and the crushing headache has receded to a dull ache. You are weak, exhausted, but you know you have passed the crisis. You have survived. You look at Tom, who has fallen asleep on a pile of straw near your bed, his face peaceful in the dim light. He saved you, not with medicine or magic, but with a piece of bread, an apple, and the simple, stubborn fact of his presence. He reminded your body that it was worth fighting for. You realize that in this nest of vipers, the only true loyalty, the only real human connection you have found, is with the one person everyone else considers a fool. Your health, your very life, means nothing to your powerful masters. You are replaceable, a broken toy. But to the other broken toy in the castle, you are, it seems, a friend. Your recovery is slow. You regain your strength in fits and starts, your body feeling like a strangeress. The castle, however, does not wait for you. The king, wrestling with his grief, has found a new, dangerous distraction. The prospect of war, the raid on the northern border, the one that preceded his son's death, has festered in his mind. It has become a symbol of all the world's injustice, a target for his untethered rage and sorrow. His advisors, seeing a chance to expand the kingdom and win glory, fan the flames. The talk in the court is no longer of mourning, but of retribution. The kingdom is preparing for a full-scale invasion of the northern territories, ruled by the same lord the queen wanted you to slander. The castle transforms once more. The low hum of political intrigue is replaced by the clang of hammers in the armory, the shouting of orders in the training yard, and the grim-faced resolve of men preparing for battle. Wagons are loaded with supplies, armor is polished, and blades are sharpened. The air is electric with a nervous, violent energy. Your role in this new reality is uncertain. A fool seems to have no place in a war council, but the king, in his strange, grief-stricken state, commands you to be present at all meetings. You stand in the corner of the war room. A bizarre splash of yellow and green against the gray stone walls and the dark leather of the warriors' jerkins. You listen as they plan their campaigns, as they talk of flanking maneuvers, supply lines, and siege tactics. They speak of men as numbers, of villages as objectives, of death as a regrettable but necessary cost. It is a cold, brutal calculus, and you are a silent witness to it all. Your function shifts again. The king doesn't want jokes, but he seems to find a strange comfort in your presence. Perhaps you are a reminder of a time before his grief, or perhaps, as the one person in the room with no stake in the war, your silence is a relief from the ambitious whispers of his generals. But as the day of departure for the army grows near, the mood in the castle becomes tense and somber. The men are anxious, the women fearful. The king senses this. He needs to raise morale, to inject a sense of confidence and righteous fury into his people. And so, he turns to you. At the final feast before the army marches, he calls you forward. Fool, he commands, his voice resonating with a forced strength. These brave men go to fight for their king and kingdom. They face danger and death. Give them a reason to smile. Remind them of what they fight for, but do not make light of their task. Be funny, but be noble. It is the most difficult creative brief you have ever received. Funny but noble. Witty but respectful of war. It has a contradiction in terms. A tightrope walk over a canyon of potential missteps. A joke that is too light will seem insulting to the soldiers. A speech that is too somber will kill the mood entirely. This was a genuine and historically significant role for jesters during wartime. They were, in essence, propaganda ministers and morale officers. Their job was to craft a narrative to mock the enemy, to praise their own king's strength, and to provide a release for the soldiers' tension and fear. Jesters like Archie Armstrong, Fool, to King James I and Charles I, were known to have accompanied their masters on military campaigns, their wit considered as vital a tool as a sword. The debate among military historians is how effective this actually was. Did a foolish joke really make a difference to a man about to face a hail of arrows? Or was it just a sideshow, a momentous distraction before the grim reality of battle? You stand before the assembled knights and soldiers. Their faces are grim, their eyes full of a mixture of bravado and fear. You cannot tell them a fable. You cannot do acrobatics. You need words. You decide not to mock the enemy, which feels cheap. Instead, you decide to mock the very nature of the fear they are all feeling. Brave men of the North, you begin, your voice projecting across the silent hall. I have heard you are worried. You are worried about the enemy's sharp swords and their strong shields. You pause. You should not worry about their swords. A sword is just a long, pointy piece of metal. It can be blocked. It can be dodged. It is a simple thing. And you should not worry about their shields. A shield is just a big, flat piece of wood. It can be broken. It can be bypassed. It, too, is a simple thing. You lean forward, your voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. No, the thing you should truly fear, the one weapon our enemy has that is almost unbeatable, is their cooking. A ripple of surprised laughter spreads through the hall. I have it on good authority. You continue, with mock seriousness, that theirs too is so bad. It has been known to make grown men weep. Their bread is so hard. They use it to build their fortress walls. They do not fight to defend their land. They fight in the desperate hope that they will be captured by us, so they can finally get a decent meal. The hall erupts in a roar of genuine, cathartic laughter. The soldiers, who were just moments ago contemplating their own mortality, are now laughing at the idea of bad stew. You have not belittled their courage or the danger they face. You have simply taken their great, monolithic fear and replaced it, for a moment, with something small, absurd, and relatable. You have given them a moment of levity, a release valve for the pressure that has been building for weeks. The king watches you, and for the first time since his son's death, a genuine, ghost of a smile touches his lips. It is not a smile of joy, but of appreciation. You have done the impossible. You have brought laughter into a room full of men on their way to war. As the laughter subsides, you feel a strange sense of accomplishment mixed with a deep, profound sadness. You have used your wit to make men forget, for a moment, that they might be marching to their deaths. You are a purveyor of beautiful, necessary lies, and as the soldiers cheer, you wonder how many of them will ever taste too, good or bad. Again, the army marches north, and a strange, hollow quiet descends upon the castle. The man keep, drained of its most powerful and ambitious men, feels cavernous and empty. The remaining population consists of women, children, old men, scribes, and servants. The political temperature drops, the frantic energy of war preparation replaced by a nervous, careful waiting. Your duties, for once, are light. With the king and the bulk of the court gone, there is no one to entertain. The queen has retreated into her own world, focused on the education of her son, the new heir. She has no current use for you, and your dangerous alliance with her lies dormant. You are left to your own devices, a rare and unsettling freedom. You spend your days in a state of aimless limbo. You practice your juggling in the empty training yard. You talk to the hounds. You spend hours with Tom, who is perfectly content with the new, quieter reality. You teach him a new rhyme, and he shows you how to carve a whistle from a piece of willow wood. Your friendship is a simple, solid thing in a world of shifting allegiances, but the quiet allows a deep-seated loneliness to resurface. Your connections within the castle are limited to a traumatized king, a manipulative queen, and a man-child who cannot understand the complexities of your life. You are an island. One afternoon, seeking refuge from the oppressive silence of the keep, you wander into the castle's small, neglected library. It is a dusty, forgotten room, filled with a handful of leather-bound manuscripts, mostly dry theological texts and records of land ownership. It is the domain of a single man, Brother Michael, the castle's resident scribe and librarian. Brother Michael is a quiet, stooped man in his late 50s, with ink-stained fingers and eyes that are perpetually squinting from years of close work in poor light. He is a man of God, but more than that, he is a man of letters. He is considered part of the furniture, as overlooked and as unassuming as you are. But for different reasons, he looks up, surprised, as you enter his sanctuary. Your motley costume is a jarring splash of chaos in his world of ordered lines and quiet contemplation. You expect him to shoo you away, to protect his precious books from the likes of a fool. Instead, he simply asks, "Can you read?" His voice is soft, raspy from disuse. You shake your head. "No, brother." He nods slowly, a flicker of something pity, perhaps, or just academic interest in his eyes. A man of words who cannot read them, he murmurs, more to himself than to you. A strange paradox. This was, of course, the reality for most people in the medieval period, including many who were renowned for their wit and storytelling. Literacy was a specialized skill, largely confined to the clergy and a small segment of the nobility. A Jester's art was oral, passed down through memorization and performance, not written texts. The idea of a Jester's joke book is largely a modern invention. Their craft lived and died on the air. The debate among historians is how much this oral culture preserved or distorted stories and information over time. You expect the conversation to end there, but Brother Michael surprises you. He gestures to a stool. "Sit," he says. "If you cannot read the words, perhaps you would like to see the pictures." He opens a large, heavy book on his desk. It has an illuminated manuscript, a bestiary filled with fantastical drawings of animals, both real and imagined. He begins to turn the pages, showing you the vibrant illustrations. A unicorn, so pure it can only be captured by a maiden. A griffin, with the body of a lion and the head of an eagle. A basilisk, that can kill with a single glance. He doesn't talk down to you. He speaks to you as a peer, an intellectual equal, sharing his passion. He explains the symbolism of the animals, the stories they represent. You, in turn, tell him a fable you know about a clever fox, and he smiles, a rare, genuine smile that crinkles the corners of his eyes. You find yourself drawn back to the library day after day. It becomes your sanctuary. In this quiet, dusty room, you are not the king's fool. You are simply a curious mind. Brother Michael, in his quiet way, becomes your first real teacher. He holds no power. He has no ulterior motives. He is simply a kind man who sees a spark of intelligence in you and chooses to nurture it. He begins to teach you your letters. He starts with your own initial, showing you how to form the shape with a piece of charcoal on a slate. It is a slow, painstaking process. Your fingers, more accustomed to juggling clubs, are clumsy and awkward with the charcoal, but you persevere. The act of forming a letter, of making a mark that has a fixed, unchangeable meaning, feels powerful, solid, in a life defined by shifting words and precarious performances. One day, he shows you a passage in a historical chronicle. He reads it aloud. It is an account of a battle from a century ago, and in the margins of the page, a previous scribe has drawn a small cartoonish drawing a caricature of one of the knights, with a ridiculously large nose and crossed eyes. Even we men of God are not immune to the fool's impulse. Brother Michael says with a wry smile, "Sometimes, mockery is the only way to speak a truth." This small detail, a historical doodle, is a fascinating and very real phenomenon known as marginalia. Medieval scribes would often decorate the margins of serious texts with bizarre, funny, or even subversive drawings. They drew knights fighting snails, monkeys playing bagpipes, and rabbits enacting revenge on their human hunters. These strange little drawings are a puzzle to historians. Were they simple boredom, private jokes, or a form of subtle commentary and social satire? A safe way to express dissent in a world where open criticism was dangerous. They are, in a sense, the written equivalent of a Jester-esque jest. You look at the silly drawing, and then at the kind, patient man beside you. Then you feel a glimmer of a connection that is deeper than any you have known here. It is not based on need or power or shared misery. It is based on a shared curiosity about the world, a mutual respect for the power of words and pictures, whether they are spoken aloud in a great hall or quietly drawn in the margins of a book. For the first time since you arrived at this castle, you don't feel like a tool or a pet or a target. You feel like a person who is, letter by painful letter, learning to read. It is a small, quiet rebellion against the role that has been forced upon you. You are more than just the bells and the motley. You are a mind, and it is beginning to find its own voice. Weeks turn into a month. Your lessons with Brother Michael become the anchor of your quiet days. You learn to recognize the shapes of words, to sound them out, to piece together simple sentences. The world is a written word, once a locked and mysterious realm, is slowly beginning to open to you. It is a secret, precious thing, this newfound skill, a part of yourself that is separate from your role as the fool. Then, the army returns. They do not return as a triumphant, conquering force. They return as a broken, beaten remnant. The campaign was a disaster. The Northern Lord underestimated it and far better prepared than the king's spies had realized, lured the royal army into a trap. The battle was a slaughter. The king returns not with prisoners and spoils, but with a cart full of his own wounded and the heavy burden of a humiliating defeat. His grief for his son is now compounded by the shame of his failure as a warlord. He is a changed man. The raging fire of his anger has been extinguished, leaving behind only cold, bitter ash. He is withdrawn, paranoid, and trusts no one. The court reflects his mood. The atmosphere is thick with fear and recrimination. Factions form, whispering in corners, blaming the generals, the advisors, the weather, anyone but the king himself. The castle is a tinderbox of suspicion, waiting for a spark. The king summons you, not to the throne room, but to his private solar. Late at night, the room is dark, lit only by a single candle. He is drinking heavily, his eyes clouded and distant. They are all traitors. He slurs, his voice thick with wine and self-pity. They whisper behind my back. They say, I am weak, that I failed. He slams his goblet on the table. I did not fail. I was betrayed. He looks at you, his gaze sharp and feverish. You see things. Fool. You stand in the corners. You listen. Who is it? Who is the traitor in my court? Who rejoices at my defeat? He is asking you to be his spy, his informant. He wants you to name names, to give him a target for his rage. This is a far more dangerous game than the one the queen asked you to play. She wanted you to spread a rumor. He wants you to identify a scapegoat, and you know that whoever you name, rightly or wrongly, will face the king's terrible, desperate wrath. You think of the whispers you've heard, the sidelong glances you've seen. You know there are men who are pleased by the king's failure, who see it as an opportunity to advance their own power. The queen, you suspect, is secretly relieved. The failed war has eliminated the Northern Lord as a potential rival to her son's future claim. The king's eyes bore into you. Speak, fool. Your life depends on your usefulness to me now. You are standing on the precipice. You could name a name, any name, and probably be believed. You could point a finger at a rival of the queen, earning her favor. You could point a finger at one of the knights who tormented you, exacting your revenge. The temptation is immense. It is a moment of terrifying power. But then you think of Brother Michael. You think of the quiet dignity of the written word, of the idea of truth. You think of Tom, of his simple, uncomplicated goodness. To speak away now, to send a man to his death for your own gain or safety, feels like a betrayal of the small, fragile personhood you have just begun to build. You decide to do something incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. You decide to tell the truth, not the truth of who the traitors are, but a deeper, more dangerous truth. The one truth no one else in the kingdom would ever dare to speak. You take a deep breath. Your Majesty, you begin, your voice quiet but clear. You ask me to find the traitor in your court. But what if the traitor is not a man? The king frowns, confused. What are you babbling about? Fool, I have seen the traitor, my lord, you say. Your heart pounding. I saw him in the war council. He was the one who mistook flattery for strategy. He was the one who listened to glory-seeking generals instead of cautious advisors. I saw him on the battlefield, the one who underestimated his enemy and led his men into a trap. The traitor, your Majesty, is the one who sits in your chair and wears your crown. The traitor is pride. The silence in the room is absolute. It is a silence so deep and so total that you can hear the candle flame sputter. You have just done the unthinkable. You have held up a mirror to the king and told him that the fault is his own. You have not wrapped it in a riddle or a fable. You have stated it, plain and simple. You have crossed the line from jester to accuser. This moment goes to the very heart of the most romanticized and debated aspect of the court jester. The fool is the speaker of truth to power. Did moments like this ever actually happen? A few tantalizing, almost certainly embellished, historical accounts suggest they did. The story of Queen Elizabeth's fool, who reportedly told her madam, "He that will not be ruled by a woman must needs be a beast," is one such example. But historians are deeply skeptical. Such a direct confrontation would almost certainly have resulted in the fool's immediate execution. It is more likely that if such truths were ever spoken, they were layered under so many coats of allegory and jest that they were almost unrecognizable. You have taken that gamble. You have laid down your life, in a sense, on the hope that this broken man is capable of hearing a truth that no one else would dare to speak. The king stares at you, his face a canvas of conflicting emotions. You see the flash of wounded pride, the surge of incandescent rage. You see his hand tighten around the edge-hilt of the dagger at his belt. This is it. This is the end. He will kill you now, and no one in the kingdom will say a word. But then, something else happens. The rage in his eyes falters, replaced by a wave of utter, devastating despair. The anger was a shield. Then you have just shattered it. He slumps back in his chair, the fight gone out of him. He looks not at you, but through you, his eyes filled with the terrible, lonely knowledge that you are right. He doesn't speak. He just waves a trembling, dismissive hand. Get out. He rasps. You back away slowly, your legs shaking. You have spoken the most dangerous truth of your life. You have survived the immediate aftermath. But you have no idea what the morning will bring. You have gambled everything on a single, impossible moment of honesty, and the silence that follows is more terrifying than any scream. You don't go back to the kennels. You know, with a cold certainty, that you cannot. The king's dismissal was not a pardon. It was a prelude. You have shattered his defenses, and when his grief and shame curdle back into rage, he will come for you. You meet to disappear. You find your way to the library. It is dark and silent. You light a single candle, your hands trembling. You don't know what you're really looking for. A place to hide, a way out. You're new. Rudimentary reading skills are useless to you now. You are there for less than an hour when the guards come. They are not the usual castle guards who patrol the walls. These are the men of the king's personal retinue, his most loyal and brutal soldiers. They move with a quiet, deadly purpose. They don't speak. They don't need to. They seize you. Their grips like iron. You don't resist. It would be pointless. They drag you from the library. You're ridiculous. Bell adorned, she's scuffing on the stone floor. Brother Michael is nowhere to be seen. You hope he is safe, that he will not be punished for his association with you. They haul you down a series of winding staircases, deeper and deeper into the castle's belly, far below the kennels, below the kitchens, below the world of the living. The air grows cold and damp, thick with the smell of wet earth and despair. This is the way to the dungeons. The dungeon is not a single room with a barred door, as you might have imagined. It is a labyrinth of small, lightless stone cells, carved directly out of the bedrock beneath the castle. The guards shove you into one of these cells. The door is not wood, but a solid iron grate, which they lock with a heavy, final-sounding thud. You are left in absolute darkness. The silence is a physical weight, broken only by the drip, drip of water somewhere in the distance and the frantic beating of your own heart. You reach out and touch the walls. They are slick with moisture and something slimy that you don't want to identify. The floor is cold, unforgiving stone. There is no straw, no blanket, nothing. This is the cold reality of the medieval dungeon. It was not primarily a place for long-term incarceration in the modern sense. It was a place to hold a prisoner before trial, torture, or execution. It was a place designed to break the body and the spirit. The conditions were intentionally horrific. Starvation, dehydration, and exposure were common. The historical debate around dungeons often revolves around their purpose. Were they simply holding cells, or were they an integral part of the punishment itself, given the high mortality rates from disease and neglect within them? Many historians argue that being thrown in the dungeon was often a death sentence in itself, just a slower and more miserable one than beheading. Time ceases to have meaning. You don't know if it is day or night. You measure the hours by the slow, agonizing rhythm of your own hunger and thirst. Once a day, or what you perceive as a day, a guard shoves a wooden bowl of brackish water and a crust of moldy bread through a slot in the grate. It is not enough to live on, but just enough to prolong your suffering. The loneliness is a palpable entity in the dark with you. It is a far deeper and more terrifying loneliness than any you have felt before. In the great hall, you were an outcast. Here, you are an entity. You have ceased to exist. In the darkness, your mind begins to play tricks on you. You hear whispers in the dripping water. You see faces in the faint patterns of condensation on the walls. You think of the king's face when you spoke the truth, the flicker of rage followed by the vast emptiness of despair. You think of the queen's cold ambition, of brother Michael's quiet kindness, of Tom's simple, innocent smile. They are ghosts from a world you will never see again. You remember a morbid piece of trivia you once heard a scholar discuss. The oblate. It has a French word meaning the forgotten place. It was a type of dungeon cell, a narrow shaft with an opening only at the very top. Prisoners were robbed in and simply left to die, to be forgotten by the world. While some historians argue the classic bottle-shaped oblate is more a product of Gothic fiction than historical fact, the principle was very real. Many cells were designed to be inescapable and hidden, places where people could, and did, simply disappear from history. You wonder if this is your oblate. Will they just leave you here to rot? Is this the ultimate price for your wit, for your one moment of genuine, unvarnished honesty, to be erased? One day, you hear footsteps. Not the single pair of the guard who brings you meager rations. Several pairs. They stop outside your cell. 80 grates in the lock. The iron grate swings open, flooding the cell with the blinding, painful light of a torch. You cringe, shielding your eyes. You see the silhouettes of 2 guards, and between them, a third figure. It is the king. He steps into your cell, his fine robes looking absurdly out of place in this wretched hole. He holds the torch himself, his face half lit, half in shadow. He looks older, more haggard than ever. He stares at you, a miserable, filthy creature huddled in the corner. He doesn't speak for a long time. He just looks at you, his expression unreadable. You brace yourself. This is it. He has come to deliver the final sentence himself, to gloat, perhaps, before he orders your death. Pride, he says, his voice a dry whisper. You were right. It was pride. He takes a deep, shuddering breath. It is a lonely, bitter thing to be a king, to be surrounded by mirrors that only show you what you wish to see. He looks around the tiny, filthy cell. This is a place for traitors, and you are many things. Fool, a nuisance, an impertinence, a pain in my soul. But you are not a traitor. In the end, you were the only one who was loyal enough to tell me the truth. He turns to the guards. Release him. The word hangs in the air. Unbelievable. You have been in the dark for so long that the light of hope is almost as painful as the light of the torch. You don't understand. This makes no sense. The guards unlock your chains. Your limbs are stiff and weak. Your muscles atrophied from disuse. When you try to stand, your legs buckle beneath you, and you would have fallen if a guard hadn't got you. His grip surprisingly steady. They half carry, half drag you out of the dungeon, up the seemingly endless flights of stairs, back towards the light. The world outside your cell is a sensory assault. The torchlight is blinding. The air feels sharp and clean in your lungs, and the ambient sounds of the castle are a roaring cacophony to your accustomed silence. You are taken not to the kennels, but to a small, clean chamber with a real bed and a wash basin filled with hot water. You are given clean clothes, not motley, but a simple linen tunic and hose. You are given a bowl of warm, thick soup and a piece of fresh bread. It is the most exquisite meal you have ever tasted. No one speaks to you. The guards perform their duties with a detached professionalism and then leave you, locking the door from the outside. You are no longer in a dungeon, but you are still a prisoner in a slightly more comfortable cage. You are left alone for 2 days to recover your strength, to wash the filth of the dungeon from your skin, to reacquaint yourself with the world of the living, and you are left to wonder, why did the king spare you? His actions make no logical sense. A king as power is absolute, built on a foundation of fear and unshakable authority. You publicly, albeit in a private audience, undermined that authority. You exposed his greatest weakness to himself. The traditional response would be to eliminate the source of that shame, to erase the memory of that moment by erasing you. Mercy, in this context, is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of weakness, of caprice. This is the very definition of a monarch's capricious power. His decisions do not need to be logical or consistent. He can order a man whipped for an innocent joke and pardon another for a direct, treasonous-sounding insult. His whim is the law. Your life and death hang entirely on the unpredictable, ever-shifting weather of his emotional state. This unpredictability of justice is a recurring theme in historical chronicles. Nobles who were favorites one day could find themselves on the execution harass block the next, for reasons that were often opaque to outside observers. Historians debate endlessly about the motivations behind these sudden reversals of fortune. Was it a calculated political move, a genuine change of heart, or the paranoid whim of an unstable ruler? For the people living under that rule, the why was less important than the terrifying reality that their fortunes could turn on a dime. On the 3rd day, the king summons you again. You are brought to the same solar where you sealed your fate. The king is there, sober this time, his eyes clear but filled with a profound weariness. I have been thinking, he says, gesturing for you to sit, an unprecedented honor, about truth, about what it is worth. I have lords who tell me lies to gain land. I have knights who tell me lies to gain glory. I have a wife who tells me lies to secure our son as future. He says this last part with a chilling lack of emotion, a sign that he sees the court's machinations more clearly now. And I have a fool, he continues, looking directly at you, who tells me the truth and gets thrown in a dungeon for it. The world is upside down. He tells you that he is pardoning you. You will not be executed. You will not be banished. You will be reinstated as his court jester. You are floored. You cannot comprehend it. You manage to survive, but to be returned to your old position seems impossible. Why, you asked, the single word escaping your lips before you can stop it. The king gives a short, bitter laugh. Because I am a fool myself, he says. I am a fool who has been reminded of his own folly. And every king needs a reminder. You will be mine. You will be my living, breathing Herschot. When I see you in your ridiculous clothes, I will remember the darkness of that cell. I will remember the taste of a truth so bitter it almost choked me. You will keep me from becoming the kind of king I was turning into. He is not offering you forgiveness. He is sentencing you to a new kind of prison. He is making you a symbol, a living monument to his own moment of clarity. Your role is no longer to make him laugh or to distract him. or even to tell him the truth. Your role is simply to exist, to be a constant, painful reminder of his failure. This is a strange and fascinating, though likely rare, dynamic between a ruler and a fool. Some historical accounts hint at certain jesters having this kind of memento mori function, a reminder of mortality, humility, or past mistakes. The famous story of the slave whispering, "Remember, you are mortal," in the ear of a triumphant Roman general serves a similar purpose. The fool, in this sense, becomes a part of the king's own conscience, externalized and given bells and a funny hat. He dismisses you. You are led back to your new room. A servant arrives with a freshly laundered and repaired motley costume. It lies on the bed, a splash of garish, mocking color in the quiet room. Putting it back on feels like donning a shroud. You have been pardoned by the king for reasons you will never truly understand. It was not justice. It was not mercy in its purest form. It was the arbitrary, unpredictable act of a powerful man rebuilding his own shattered ego. You have been pulled from the abyss, not to be set free, but to be placed back on the tightrope, and you have a terrible feeling that the rope is now higher than ever before. You put the motley back on. The scratchy wool feels alien against your clean skin. The bells, once a source of constant anxiety, now sound hollow and dead to your ears. They are the sound of your gilded cage being locked once more. You look at your reflection in a polished pewter plate. The face that stares back is yours, but it has a treacherous face. The eyes are older, haunted by the memory of absolute darkness. The smile you practice is a grotesque grimace, a mask that no longer fits. You return to your duties, but everything has changed. You are a ghost at court. The nobles, who once tormented you, now give you a wide berth. They look at you with a mixture of fear and awe. You are the man who spoke truth to the king and lived. You are the man who was swallowed by the dungeon and spat back out. They don't understand you, and so they fear you. Your isolation, once a product of their scorn, is now a product of their superstition. You are no longer just a fool. You are an omen. The king keeps you by his side constantly, during audiences, during meals, during council meetings. He rarely speaks to you. He just wants you there, a silent, colorful specter. Your presence is a constant, unspoken message to his court. I am a king who can endure the truth. I am a king who can tame even the wildest fool. You are no longer his entertainer. You are his prop, a part of his new, carefully constructed image of a wizened, self-aware ruler. You try to perform. You tell a simple, harmless joke in the great hall one evening. The laughter from the courtiers is nervous. First, they are afraid to laugh too loudly, afraid to seem as if they are mocking the king's living conscience. They look to the king for a cue, but he doesn't smile. He just watches you with his weary, knowing eyes. The joke falls into a pit of anxious silence. Laughter, the very to love your trade, has been taken from you. The queen avoids you entirely. Your brief, dangerous alliance is over. You are the king's man now, in a way that is far more binding than before. You have become a symbol of his power, and she, a master of subtlety, will not touch you. You have served your purpose for her, and now you are a liability. Your only solace is in your two unlikely friendships. You continue your secret reading lessons with Brother Michael. In the dusty silence of the library, you can briefly take off the mask. You are not the king's omen. You are just a man learning about the world. Brother Michael never asks about what happened. He doesn't need to. He just patiently guides your hand as you learn to write your own name. A small act of self-creation in a life that has been defined by others. And then there is Tom. Your bond with the natural fool deepens. He doesn't understand the new fear and awe that surrounds you. He just sees you, his friend. He greets you with the same simple, joyous grin. He shares his treats with you. He shows you a bird's nest he has found. His uncomplicated presence is the only thing that feels real in the theatrical, dishonest world of the court. This highlights a saddened speculative aspect of the jester's psychology. After a traumatic event, or a brush with death, did they suffer from what we would now call post-traumatic stress? It is an anachronistic question, but a valid one. The constant threat of violence, the psychological whiplash of being alternately praised and punished, the need to constantly wear a mask of mirth, it must have taken a profound psychological toll. Historians can only guess at the inner demons that haunted these performers, the ghosts that hid behind the painted grins. There are no records of jesters seeking therapy, only records of them being dismissed for melancholy, which may well have been a medieval term for depression or burnout. One day, the king is presiding over a dispute between two merchants. One of them is clearly lying, but he is a wealthy man with powerful connections. The old king would have been swayed by his influence. The new king, with you standing silently behind his throne, listens to both sides, his face impassive. He then makes a just and fair ruling, siding with the poorer merchant who was telling the truth. As the court empties, he turns to you. "Did you see? Fool," he murmurs, a flicker of something almost like pride in his voice. "I listened. I learned. You nod, but you feel nothing. You are the ghost of his conscience, and your reward is to watch him become a better man. A victory you can't even celebrate. You are a tool that has successfully repaired its master, but the tool itself has been broken in the process. The wit, the joy, the spark that made you a great fool, it has all gone, left behind in the darkness of that cell. You have the king's protection. You have a comfortable room. You have food. You are, by all external measures, in a better position than ever before. That you are a hollowed-out shell. The man you were is gone. The person who stood up to a king and spoke the truth died in that dungeon. The thing that came out is just a shadow, a ghost dressed in motley, forever grinning a smile that no longer reaches its dead eyes. You are safe. You are respected. You are utterly, completely empty. Years pass. The king, with you as his silent, ever-present reminder, solidifies his rule. He becomes known not as a great warrior, but as a just and thoughtful sovereign. He is slow to anger, deliberate in his judgments, and deeply suspicious of flattery. The court is a calmer, more stable place. The memory of the disastrous war and the princess' death has faded into a somber historical footnote. And you have become a fixture, a piece of living history. You are the old fool. Your motley is faded. The bells on your head have a dull, tired sound. Your face is lined, not with laughter, but with a quiet, abiding weariness. You no longer perform. You are simply there. A relic, the king's son, the heir, the boy whose future the queen protected with her cold ambition, is now a young man. He is tall and confident, full of the easy arrogance of youth. He looks at you with confusion. He doesn't understand your purpose. To him, you are just a sad old man in a strange costume who stands behind his father's throne. He has no memory of the king his father used to be, and so he cannot comprehend the symbol you represent. The end comes quietly, not with a bang, but with a simple, inevitable conversation. The king summons you to the solar, the same room where your fate has been decided so many times. He looks older now, his hair streaked with gray, but his eyes are clear and calm. "My son is a man now," the king says, his voice gentle. "He will soon take a wife. A new generation is taking root in this castle, a generation that does not need the ghosts of the past." He looks at you, and there is no malice in his eyes, only a kind of finality. Your work here is done. Old friend, he is releasing you. It is not a banishment. It is a retirement. What will I do? You ask, the question plain and honest. Your entire adult life has been lived within these walls. The world outside is a foreign country. I have made arrangements, the king says. He explains that he has granted you a small inn on the main road, a few days' journey from the castle. It comes with a small plot of land and a modest pension. You will be your own master. This was a rare but not unheard of fate for a favored court servant, including some jesters. To be pensioned off with a small property was the medieval equivalent of a golden handshake. It was a way for a ruler to show gratitude and, more practically, to ensure a potentially knowledgeable or embarrassing figure was comfortably and quietly removed from the sphere of influence. Whether this was an act of genuine kindness or a calculated final move to secure a legacy is, as with so many things in history, a matter of debate for scholars. You are given a purse of silver, a new set of warm, practical clothes, and a sturdy mule. The next morning, you leave the castle. There is no ceremony, no farewell. You just walk out of the main gate, a man no one recognizes without his motley. You see Brother Michael standing by the gate. He simply places a small, leather-bound book in your hands, a simple book of fables, one you can now read yourself, and clasps your shoulder. No words are necessary. As you are about to leave the courtyard, you hear a familiar shuffling sound. It is Tom. He runs up to you, a look of distress on his face. He doesn't understand where you are going. He presses something into your hand, a smooth, gray stone, the kind he juggles with, a gift. You look at him, at his kind, simple face, then you feel a pang of genuine sorrow. You are leaving the only person in this whole, wretched place who ever showed you uncomplicated friendship. You pat his shoulder, unable to speak, and then you turn and walk away. As you head down the road, you feel a strange lightness. For the first time in years, your movements are silent. There are no bells. The only sound is the crunch of your own boots on the gravel and the soft lopping of the mule's hooves. You are anonymous. You are free. You look back one last time at the castle. It rises against the skyline, a formidable fortress of stone and power. Your entire life played out on that stage. You were a wit, a hero, a scapegoat, the weapon, a prisoner, an omen, a ghost. You were 1,000 different things to 1,000 different people. Now, you are just a man on a road, with a mule and a book of fables, a forgotten footnote, a faded thread, finally pulled from the great, bloody, beautiful tapestry of the court. And for the first time in a very, very long time, you are content to be simply that,